Pirates, I can reject everything. 181-200. 181. Bet on the name of justice, and Chris will be caught in impel down. Hearing these words, everyone was stunned for a moment, and quickly turned their heads to look at the voice, to have a look, to see who the person was. Such a shameless statement. I saw the people coming at a very fast speed, constantly jumping on the desert, raising high dust, and the sand surface hummed. He was wearing Marine's costume, that righteous cloak, and he looked very striking and impressive. Person here is a typical hawkish general, Onagumo Vice Admiral. Come on, we've been waiting for you for a long time, Onagumo Vice Admiral, way ha 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 ha. Burgess laughed, his tone full of sarcasm, not taking the elite Vice Admiral in his eyes at all. Luo, carrying the demon knife and crying, still said indifferently, "It looks like a spider, no wonder it is called Onagumo Vice Admiral." Cavendish shrugged his shoulders and said helplessly, as expected of the veteran Vice Admiral of the headquarters, "This momentum is different." Jin frowned, his face dignified, very serious. "I heard from the captain that this Vice Admiral is very extreme and has a very cruel personality. In order to carry out his mission, even if he kills his subordinates, he doesn't care at all. Among the Hawks generals, except Admiral Akainu, he is basically the strongest existence." Bartolomeo put his hands in his trouser pockets, and said disdainfully, "Whatever is the strongest existence is garbage. In front of the captain, a veteran Vice Admiral is simply not enough to watch, ha ha ha." Van Auger tapped the gun on the shoulder, and said with a blank face, "As long as we pass his test, we can become Shichibukai." It seems that this is another fork in fate. Kuro was very rational and agreed, "That's right, as long as the captain defeats him, then Shichibukai will be a sure thing." Looking at this situation, Onagumo will contact the headquarters and report the news of the defeat. And tomorrow, such a story will appear in the newspapers. A new generation of Shichibukai, Chris. Lafitte stood his cane in front of him. "Vivi Isho," very gentlemanly said, "after listening to your words, I am really looking forward to it. In this case, I will definitely buy the newspaper tomorrow, and I won't miss a minute." Dory showed a serious expression and said solemnly, "Very strong, as expected of the elite Vice Admiral of the headquarters, much stronger than Crocodile." Brigitte nodded, with a serious look on his face, and agreed, "The generals of the Hawks are all main war factions, typical militants. So as long as the characters of the Hawks are very powerful, there is no doubt about this." At this moment, with a swoosh, Onagumo leapt high and slammed into the desert, raising a cloud of dust that enveloped him in it. As expected by staff, Crocodile was really defeated by you, which is really surprising. Onagumo held a cigarette in his mouth, with a cold look on his face, looked at the people around him through the smoke, and said something cold. "It's all the dregs of the sea. It is because of your existence that the air of the sea becomes so dirty. Today, this Vice Admiral represents absolute justice and will definitely send you all to impel down. Justice wins." At this time, the smoke and dust had already fallen on the desert. You can look at this hawkish boss up close, and can't help but whisper. Karina's beautiful eyes revealed a sly color. He said, "Don't talk about it, the image is really like a big spider." Perona floated in the air, nodding repeatedly, yes, it looks really funny, ha 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 ha. "I heard from Chris that this Onagumo Vice Admiral is a zone common spider fruit person." Carmen shrugged and said something casually. "He can conjure up a lot of feet, and then each foot holds a weapon and can attack in multiple lines." Alvita carried the big black iron rod, frowned his beautiful eyebrows, and said seriously, "The murderous aura on his body is really heavy. As expected of a general of the main battle faction, he is decisive in killing and can shock the younger generation." Nami nodded and agreed. "His breath is indeed very cold, and at first glance, you can tell that he is a cold-blooded and ruthless soldier." The sweetheart queen stroked her pale blonde hair and smiled. "Isho, it's the first time I've seen Vice Admiral from the headquarters since I was a child." This is a real big man, of the highest level. Betty spit out the smoke from his mouth and said seriously, compared to Crocodile, the strength of this vice admiral is really much stronger. Vivi clenched her hands tightly, her beautiful and delicate face showed a look of anticipation, and muttered to herself. I trust Lord Chris, he will certainly not let us down. Chichibukai's position can only belong to Chris, and no one can take it away. Robin lowered his hat to cover his face. Vivi lowered his head and said, the strength of this Onagumo is also ranked among the top in Vice Admiral. But when it comes to Chris, he has nothing to do, and he is destined to be unable to stop Chris's footsteps. At this time, the sky is getting darker and darker, it seems to be raining, the weather is getting cooler and cooler, and the breeze is blowing, which is enchanting. Chris put his arms around him, looked at Onagumo indifferently, and said calmly, it seems that you are very confident in your own strength. Single-handedly kill without even a single subordinate, I admire your courage, Onagumo. Burgess laughed and said aloud, Captain, the next battle is up to you. Let's step aside first to avoid being affected. Poisonous cough. Wrong Ugly said. It's boring to fight Shichibukai. It's more fun to fight the headquarters vice admiral, hee. Okay, do and smear the ink, and hurry up and hide away. Cavendish hurriedly stepped aside, not daring to stay here. Vivi Isho agreed, fight Crocodile, the captain will do it hard. But against the Onagumo vice admiral, that's not going to work. After all, our relationship with Marine can't be too strained. So the next battle will not end so soon, everyone should stay away from the battlefield. Luo Bing's cold face showed a rare look of anticipation, this battle is worth watching. The elite vice admiral of the headquarters will definitely be a two-color hockey, and he will also be proficient in using Rokushiki. The combat power is not ordinary. Kuro nodded and said in agreement, this kind of battle, in normal times, can't be seen. Onagumo Vice Admiral will definitely go all out and burst into full force. So this fight is absolutely fantastic. They spoke, the squad leaders moved away one by one, all leaving the area, leaving their place to Chris and Onagumo Vice Admiral. Onagumo drank a cigarette and carried a large knife, looked at Chris opposite, and said with a sneer, Chris, kid, don't be too self-righteous. To deal with you people, it's enough to have me alone, why so many people? Speaking of this, I have to mention that the inference of Staff Officer Crane is absolutely wrong. I'm the elite Vice Admiral of the headquarters, how could I not be able to win you guys? Kid, what a joke. Onagumo looked at Chris with a grim look, and said firmly, even if you have Conqueror Haki, you can easily solve Smoker. No matter what. What kind of ability do you have? Today's result is destined to be only one, you will definitely lose. Betting on the name of justice, even if you fight to the death, I will not let you escape from here. Justice wins. Chris still put his hands in front of him, his face was calm, and he said lightly, heads, but Marine's think tank is a real wise man. She's not wrong, just with your strength, it's impossible to win me, and I'm doomed to return. I have to say that Staff Officer he is really mature and skilled. Through just a few words, he has figured out my strength so clearly. No wonder that fellow Doflamingo, who is chased all over the world and flees, does not dare to face Staff Crane at all. I won't say any unnecessary nonsense. If you want to check my strength, just do it. Don't worry, I'll beat you badly at most and won't kill you. Guys, some readers said that Onagumo is not a capable person, so the author Jun specially found this picture as evidence. Pay attention to look behind Onagumo, a big bag is bulging, that is the ability of the spider fruit, so Onagumo is indeed an ability person, not a life return. 182. Almighty Push, bounce off Onagumo's ultimate move. It's not a small tone, Chris kid. Onagumo took a breath and said with a serious face, I chased you all the way from East Blue, and every time I was thrown off by you. I'll take a good look at you when I've won you. What's different about your ships, and why they can avoid the pursuit of warships? Speaking of which, although you are a newcomer, I will not be careless and will definitely go all out and take it seriously. Brush. A crisp voice sounded, and Onagumo's appearance changed significantly. On the left and right sides of the body, 3 legs grew out, all holding long swords, shining brightly and looking very sharp. At the same time, behind Onagumo, under the cloak, bulged a large bag, very similar to the body of a spider. 2 knives in the left and right hands, plus the other 6, a total of 8 weapons can be used in the 8 knives flow, which is really amazing. Although Crocodile's strength is not very good, it is not too bad. Combining with what the staff said, I have to believe that your strength must have reached the level of Vice Admiral. Onagumo spit out the smoke from his mouth, clenched the handle of the knife with both hands, and said with murderous eyes, "You are so powerful at a young age. If you continue to grow, then justice will be discredited, which is absolutely not allowed. Let's start, let me see how powerful you are." Double Blade Tornado. Onagumo put his hands in front of him, crossed his 2 large knives, and with a squeak, the knives quickly separated, sparkling with faint sparks, and fell to the desert. Exhaled a strong airflow, in a spiral shape, across the space, circling and rushing towards Chris. Wind swept the clouds, and the force was like a dragon, and the surrounding air vibrated, and the sword chi crisscrossed. The fine sand on the sand surface was affected by the strong airflow, and scattered to both sides. The smoke and dust filled the air, leaving a straight track on the desert. It's really shocking to have such a powerful destructive power in just a simple blow. The face of a ferocious tornado, even if the attack was very fast, in Chris's eyes, it was still not enough to see. He slowly raised his right hand, placed it in front of him, and said calmly, "Mirror rejection." The voice fell, a translucent wall appeared in front of him, very similar to Bartolomeo's barrier protection. Bang! The tornado formed by the sword energy slammed into the mirror, but there was still some distance in the middle, so it couldn't touch the wall at all. Suddenly, the tornado shook heavily, was repelled, and lost control for a while, like a mad snake, and attacked the desert on the left. The rumbling tornado landed on the sand surface, spinning in a spiral, and the fine sand was blown away, and the entire space was covered with dust. What's going on? Onagumo was holding a cigarette, frowned, and said coldly, "Chris, what is the ability you just used?" My dual swords flowed sword energy, not only did not break the mirror, but was bounced off. The ability to bounce off an attacking mirror, what exactly is this ability? It looks very powerful. Chris slowly put down his right hand, and the mirror suddenly disappeared. As calm as always, he said calmly, "I ate the Paramesha rejection fruit, I am a rejection person." The trick just now was the mirror repelling, which can repel all attacks. Onagumo, if you want to fight, then. I don't want a second time for such a frivolous trial, it's just a waste of each other's time. At this time, the dust on the left has already revealed the scene inside. A big deep pit left in the desert. At a glance, I couldn't see the bottom, it was very deep. Seen from this that how powerful Onagumo's casual blow is, there is no need to say more. Mirror repulsion. Onagumo took a breath and said with a stern expression, "This skill is very powerful, it can reject all long-distance attacks. Looking at this situation, if you want to fight with you, you have to use melee combat. Chris, the trial is over, let me see your strength next." Shave. A bang, Onagumo stepped on the sand surface heavily, stepping on a circular pit, and the figure disappeared instantly, like lightning, rushing towards Chris. Chris was expressionless and said lightly, "Rokushiki developed by Marine, Shaved, Iron Nugget, Kami-e, Moon Step, Renkyaku Tempest Kick, Shigen Finger Pistol." These fighting technique skills, although very good, but the attack power is still weak, not very clever physical skills. Hearing what Chris said, Onagumo got angry and said fiercely, "It's an unforgivable sin to underestimate Marine's physical skills. Damn Chris, if I say this to you, I will never forgive you." 8 spiders. Anagumo had come to Chris, his eyes glowing with murderous intent, his 8 hands clenched the big sword, and instantly turned pitch black, covering armament hockey. Without the slightest hesitation, 8 hands completely surrounded Chris from all directions, launching the most violent slash. Sword energy was threatening, the space was faintly cut open, the sword light and sword shadow, constantly flashing cold light, as if the whole world was full of Anagumo's fierce slashing. This is the peculiarity of the spider fruit, it can attack in all directions, and in close combat, it will kill the opponent fiercely. Seen that Anagumo is a typical melee master. Once approached by him, not many people can escape. All 8 feet were dispatched to block the entire escape space. Chris was still so calm, and said slowly, "The strength of the elite vice admiral of the headquarters is indeed very powerful. If Crocodile is faced with this situation, injuries are inevitable. Unfortunately, Anagumo, you are destined to be disappointed." Almighty push. Chris opened his hands, and a terrifying repulsive force burst out from him in an instant, filling the surrounding space. Boom! A shocking explosion came, and everything around Chris was repelled, and the yellow sand flew in the sky, spreading in all directions. What? Anagumo's 8-handed slashes were all deflected, and not only that, a super strong repelling force came out, repelling him. Body was completely out of control, and he flew backwards. If he hadn't held the 8 big knives tightly, even the weapons would have flown out. Bang bang bang. In the process of flying upside down, Anagumo stepped on the sand surface and stepped on several big pits in a row, trying to stabilize his body. However, the repulsive force this time far exceeded his imagination, and he couldn't control it at all, and he could only continue to fly backwards. A bang! Anagumo finally fell on the desert and rolled back for a few laps before finally stopping. Dust filled him, shrouding him in it, and he couldn't see his appearance for a while, obscuring his dejected image. However, in the desert, no weapon was seen, which means that he was still holding it tightly and did not let go. The captain's move is still so powerful, it's just invulnerable. Way ha 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 ha. Burgess raised his arms and laughed excitedly. Poisoning Anagumo's Shang, he smiled strangely and said, "What kind of elite vice admiral, hasn't it been blasted away, garbage?" Luo carried the demon sword and cried, "Still so cold, the captain's almighty push is indeed an invincible existence. As long as you use this ability, no matter what. What kind of attack, swordsmanship, devil fruits, fighting technique, and everything else, will all be rejected." Jin looked at Chris's direction and said with great admiration, "This is our captain, the strongest existence in the world." Bartolomeo shrugged his shoulders and admired, "The captain's development of devil fruit has indeed reached the level of a god. If it wasn't for the captain who said the development idea, I really don't know how to use the barrier fruit. I have to thank the captain for all this." Cavendish looked envious and muttered, "This trick is really cool, open your hands, and then reject everything. Stain, whatever. Don't care what kind of attack the opponent makes, just an almighty push, and it's all done. Strong, it's so powerful, I envy the dead." Kuro pushed his glasses habitually, and said rationally, "The captain's almighty push can be regarded as a real dead-end attack. Once it is used, it will be rejected in all directions, and there will be no loopholes at all. It is really scary." Lafitte turned his cane. Vivi Isho said something very gentlemanly. "The so-called strongest defense is the captain's move. I believe because there is absolutely no attack in this world that can break the almighty push, there is no doubt about it. Ask for automatic subscription. Big guys, I haven't asked for automatic subscription for a long time. Let me set up automatic subscription for my little brother. Thank you all. Thank you 5326, 3779 for the 100-point reward. Big guy, thank you for your reward. Updated today. There will still be 10,000 words. Don't worry. Work hard to code. Come on. Strive. Thank you BGXF 199,810 for the monthly pass. Big guy, you not only rewarded, also voted for a monthly ticket. The 39th, voted for a monthly ticket. There will be another chapter in the evening. It is a big chapter. Update later. Summer reading is happy every day. Charge 100 and get 500 coupons. Thank you 1263. 5877 for the monthly pass. 183. Onagumo, let you meet the real fighting technique, towards the peacock. Bah. Dust settled, and the appearance of Onagumo appeared. I saw the fine sand in his mouth. He quickly stood up. His hair was messy, and the white cloak of justice was stained with a lot of sand, turning it into pale yellow. A beggar, and it looks like a beggar. Where is the majesty before? It is completely impossible to see that it is an elite vice admiral of the headquarters. Damn, what happened just now? Onagumo looked forward, and saw that the smoke and dust had not dissipated, frowned, and his face was full of doubts. Obviously surrounded all directions, but was suddenly repelled, and the attack was all nullified. Chris, that almighty push, what the hell is going on? At this time, the smoke and dust gradually disappeared, and Chris. I saw him wrapping his arms around him, and said calmly, almighty push is a defensive move that I developed using the principle of repulsion. It is one level higher than mirror rejection, and it can achieve all-round defense, ignoring any attack. Onagumo, if your strength is just that, you are doomed today. Onagumo was silent for a while, recalled the process just now, nodded, agreed, and said something. When you used this skill just now, you were affected by repulsive force in all directions, and all the attacks were bounced off. I have to say, you will develop the fruit of rejection very powerfully, and the talent is really amazing. Onagumo's eyes turned cold, and he said with a cold smile, with such a potential seed, if you let you continue to grow, then justice will be completely discredited. If I guess correctly, there must be a gap when this almighty push is used, and it is impossible to use it indefinitely. As long as you seize this opportunity, Lao Tzu can solve you immediately. 8 swords and 8 dragon rolls. The voice fell, the 8 feet firmly grasped the handle of the knife. Starting from the handle, it became pitch black, and instantly spread to the entire blade. Swipe. 8 black knives were dispatched in unison, slashing sharply from different directions. Swords and shadows gleamed, the space vibrated, sword energy rippling, criss-crossing, forming 8 huge tornadoes. Each strand was in a spiral state, some on the top, some in the middle, and some on the left and right, from all directions, whistling towards Chris. Castration was ferocious, a gust of wind blew, flying sand and stone, raising dust in the sky, and Chris was carried away by the sword energy. Speed is fast and the attack power is strong, which shows how terrible this slash is. Onagumo, as I said earlier, there is a big problem with Rokushiki. Next, I'll show you what the real fighting technique is, but don't blink. Towards the peacock. He finished speaking, he stomped on the surface of the sand, and with a bang, the dust rose, and the person jumped high into the air. His eyes narrowed, his fists clenched quickly, facing the 8 threatening tornadoes, as fast as lightning, punching and punching. Brush, brush. Every time the punches hit, a pale golden flame will emerge, which is very dazzling, just like the morning sun, and the special light is conspicuous. And Chris's punches are coming to the extreme, and the flames form one by one, dyeing the entire space into pale gold, like a sea of flames. The temperature of the air rose sharply, faint white smoke appeared faintly, and countless water vapors formed quietly, and soon evaporated. Bright and dazzling, just like the rising sun, and at the same time, it is very similar to the opening of a peacock, no wonder it is called, facing the peacock. Surprise. Shocked. Seeing such a colorful picture, everyone was stunned, their eyes didn't blink, they were completely shocked. Such a peculiar way of attack is really unheard of, unseen before, so unbelievable. This. Onagumo was also shocked, his eyes widened, and his face was full of incredible looks, as if he had seen a ghost. Bang bang bang, the 8 huge tornadoes were hit by countless flames, and sonic booms continued to sound in the air, making the space seem to be shaking. Obviously, the golden flame is better, and the tornado formed by the sword energy is like a target, and can only be beaten passively. In a series of explosions, all the tornadoes were crippled, the sword energy was completely wiped out, and no trace was found. And these flames, after destroying the tornado, were castrated, like lightning, and fell towards Anagumo. The terrifying high temperature and the fierce boxing style all explain a truth. The destructive power of this move is definitely a big killer move. Let me see if it's a flame, or a sword. Anagumo bit his cigarette fiercely, his eyes and 8 legs clenched the handle of the knife, and he was armed in an instant. The 8 swords stream is unparalleled. Brush brush, 8 feet went into battle together, and quickly slashed and slashed, one knife after another, in an endless stream. The sword, light, sword and shadow filled the entire space. Because the speed of the knife is so fast, I can't see the trajectory of the knife at all. It's just a group of demons dancing. The air is constantly shaking, as if the void has been cut open, and the sword energy is stimulated. The scene is really shocking. Between Chris and Anagumo, there was a constant explosion in midair, and the sound was so loud that it spread throughout the desert. There are countless golden flames on one side, and dense slashes on the other, just like this in the air. You come and go, never stop, and waves of air are formed and continue to spread out, making the air seem to have been detonated, producing faint ripples. Pressure is full, and the sand surface below, under this strong pressure, keeps sinking, making a rumbling sound. The whole picture looked really amazing, causing the onlookers beside them to have shocked expressions on their faces, and their hearts could not be calm at all. It's scary, it's really scary. Nikita's eyes widened, her pretty face was full of horror. She said in disbelief, "Is this the world of the strong? It's so dazzling." Mary Ann's face was pale, and she shivered. "They are all devils, not human." Sarah shook her head, sighed, and said with a wry smile, "No wonder the president will be defeated, so it is. People didn't use all their strength at all, and the leader was not wronged." Similarly, seeing such a shocking scene, Ekalem was very surprised and said, "It's too strong, Lord Chris is really too powerful." Dory raised his head and laughed, praised, "This is our captain, the real fighting technique powerhouse, ah ah ah." Brigitte carried the giant axe, nodded and said with a smile, "Speaking of which, among the people I have met, the captain's fighting technique is indeed the strongest one." Girls were no exception, looking at the direction of the battlefield one by one, with excited expressions on their pretty faces, rejoicing, very happy. "This is facing the peacock, it's too strong to want it." Nami blinked her big eyes, and her smile was sweet and pure, very beautiful. Meidi stroked her pale blonde hair and smiled. Isho said, "It is as bright as the rising sun, and as dazzling as the tail of a peacock's feather. This is the concept of the facing peacock." Karina's beautiful eyes flowed, revealing a sly color, and said something with interest. "It's so beautiful, it's the most beautiful attack I've ever seen." Perona nodded again and said with a smile, "Head to head, colorful, beautiful, much prettier than a peacock, ha 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 ha. Sweetheart Queen shrugged her shoulders and said casually, "This is the first time Chris has used a peacock, and it's really extraordinary." Zizhui, facing peacocks are so powerful, if you use a day tiger, it won't scare people to death. Betty took a breath and remained calm as always. Chris said that facing peacocks is more suitable for group attacks and can kill enemies in a large area. But speaking of it, this Anagumo Vice Admiral is really too strong, and it can even take a combo against the peacock. Kaya clasped her hands tightly, with a look of admiration on her fair and delicate face, and muttered something. "Lord Chris is indeed the strongest, it's admirable." Robin folded his black and beautiful hair, and said with emotion, "I believe that this kind of fighting technique can be among the strongest. Chris is an incredible man, mysterious and powerful. Vivi put her hands together and prayed, "Master Chris, you will definitely succeed, I believe you will definitely do it." Reiju touched his delicate chin, and said with a graceful smile, "This battle is really exciting. Chris's battle for the crown is destined to be remembered by everyone." Baccarat looked at her, smiled sweetly and said, "What kind of hockey this is to be crowned king in World War I, history will definitely remember today." Everyone else nodded, and they knew very well that this time it was Chris' battle to become famous, and it was of extraordinary importance. They didn't say anything more, they all looked towards the direction of the battlefield, watching this wonderful battle. At this moment, the sound of the explosion finally stopped, and the picture was frozen in this scene. The two stood opposite each other, the middle of which was filled with smoke and dust, and a deep pit appeared in the desert, separating the two. Chris wrapped his arms around him, calm and unchanging. Anagumo took a deep breath and made a whirring sound with a tired look on his face. Obviously, in this battle against bombardment, he is at a disadvantage, and this can be seen by anyone. I can see it clearly, no wonder you say that Rokushiki is not strong enough, it seems so. Smoke gradually dissipated, Anagumo stared at Chris's figure, and said in disbelief, "I didn't expect you to be a strong fighting technique at such a young age." This peacock, relying on high-speed straight punches, makes the air rubbed, and then produces flames. With the shock wave of the straight punch and the terrifying high temperature, it brought a fatal blow to the opponent. "I have to say, your fighting technique is really too strong. In the younger generation, I have never seen a fighting technique stronger than yours." Anagumo's eyes gradually cooled, and he said loudly, "I admit, I underestimated your potential. As the seed of sin, if you survive, then Marine's justice will no longer be maintained." With a big hand, he tore off the cloak of justice, threw it aside, and said something sonorously and forcefully. "For justice, even if you die today, you will never be spared. Next, I will go all out to use all my cards and be sure to kill you." Chris still wrapped his arms in front of him, and said calmly, "Is it using the ability to return life, or planning to awaken the devil fruit?" "Anagumo, give you 5 minutes. After this time limit, I will not be with you, so if you have the ability, just use it. Speaking of which, since I went to sea, you are still the strongest marine I have met. Let's dance, just let me test my strength." Hearing Chris's words, Anagumo got angry, blue veins burst out on his forehead, and he said something very angry. "Chris, you darn bastard, you treat me as a sparring partner. No, forgive, you will pay for what you say. Wake up." Brush. In an instant, the appearance of Anagumo has changed greatly. The 6 feet on the left and right sides became even bigger, full of explosive power. A powerful aura emanated from his body, majestic, a kind of heroic spirit that dominated the world. The strength of the headquarters, elite vice admiral. With a bang, Anagumo stomped on the sand, creating a large circular pit, filled with smoke and dust, and people jumped high and charged towards Chris. "Chris, being able to push me to this level, even if you lose the battle, is enough to be proud of yourself. The next slash is not a small fight, but don't let me kill Chris. Awaken the 8 swords god slash." The voice fell, the 8 feet came together and held them high, and the 8 broadswords had already covered armament hockey, shining with a dark light. The violent sword intent erupted from Anagumo's body, full of majesty and a sense of sight, the vision of a god descending into the world. Although the attack has not been released yet, judging from this momentum, the lethality of this blow is definitely not comparable to the previous one. Anagumo Vice Admiral, finally going all out, risking his life to fight. Bosses, the picture above is towards the peacock. The skill that Kai uses when he fights the ghost shark. For the specific content, you can go and see Naruto, I won't mention it here, I don't want to count the words. 184. The battle is over, Anagumo receives a call from the headquarters. "Anagumo, if your speed is still this slow after awakening, Chris was calm as always, and said calmly, "Then no matter what attack you launch, I can reject it." Mirror repulsion. Lifted his right hand slowly and placed it on his head, and a translucent mirror appeared in an instant. Bang! Although Onagumo has awakened, his strength has been greatly improved, and his attack power has become much stronger. But the result is still the same. In the face of Chris's repelling ability, no matter how sharp the slash, it can only be nullified. Damn repulsion. The 8 knives stopped above the mirror, unable to touch the mirror at all, let alone break it. Onagumo gritted his teeth, and his 8 feet suddenly exerted force, pressing down with all his strength, breaking the mirror no matter what. However, he was doomed to fail. An extremely strong repulsive force hit him, bounced him away, and the man flew upside down into the sky. Shave. Rokushiki again, and it descended like lightning, carrying a fierce power and charging towards Chris. I don't believe it. I can't break you, the broken 5, mirror. Awakening 8 hits. Left and right, 4 knives each, all armed, attacked Chris. Fierce, a gust of wind blew, and the sword energy rippling, it seemed that the space was cut open, and it vibrated faintly. Expressionless face, Chris said lightly, "Onagumo, remind you, there are still 4 minutes left." Double-sided repulsion. This time, Chris raised both his left and right hands, and 2 translucent mirrors appeared beside him, protecting him in the middle. Bang bang, 2 explosions came, left and right. The 4 knives all stopped in front of the mirror, but they still couldn't touch the mirror and were directly repelled. Damn, you can use 2 sides, mirror. Onagumo was bounced off again, and his 8 feet held the handle of the knife tightly, and said with an angry face, "I don't believe it anymore. When your repulsive force is exhausted, I will kill you immediately. Attack, as long as you keep attacking, you can definitely break this damn mirror. Justice will triumph over evil, there is no doubt about that." Without the slightest hesitation, he rushed towards Chris again and launched the strongest attack. Immediately afterwards, sonic booms continued to sound in this battle area. Bang bang bang, it couldn't stop. Marine headquarters, Marineford. In the office, there were daily meetings. As usual, the lowest level also Rear Admiral Branu stood aside, looked at the generals present, and said in detail, "The headquarters contacted Boa Hancock and made some understanding. She gave the answer. She wants to stand in the New World and let the name of the Empress spread throughout the sea. Based on the results of our analysis, this should be the reason why Boa Hancock is reluctant to return to Hydra. She not only wants to make a name for herself, but also to improve her strength and make her combat experience richer. So whatever matter how we communicate with her, she will not leave the New World, and will be stationed there in the future, constantly hunting pirates with a bounty of over 100 million. After listening to Brano's words, Garp laughed and said something. Very good, this woman's consciousness is really getting more and more terrifying. There are only a few women I admire, she is one of them, ha ha ha. Borsellino was leaning back in the chair, cocked too terrifyingly. If it continues like this, another emperor will be born, it's really scary. A resolute look on his face, Akainu said solemnly, damn sea scum, if something happens every day, they should be wiped out. Doberman nodded and echoed, just a woman, why does the whole world revolve around her? Strictly order her to leave the New World, otherwise, I will solve it by force, and I don't believe that she dares to make trouble again. Chatan Tokikake shrugged his shoulders and said, wouldn't it be nice to keep her in the New World? Anyway, she has been hunting pirates, which is still beneficial to us. Momonga was expressionless and agreed, it's really a good thing to let the pirates fight to save us from doing it. At this time, Staff Officer Crane held his chin with both hands, his eyes flashed with wisdom, and he said something in an old voice. Why does Boa Hancock stay in the New World? The answer to this question, we don't need to delve into it at all. If she is willing to stay in the New World, with her beauty, she will naturally attract a lot of pirates, so fighting is inevitable. Those pirates with a bounty of over 100 million were solved by her one by one, which must be a good thing for us. So you don't need to care what her purpose is, just let her toss. Staff Officer Crane showed concern, and said with a serious face, "What I'm worried about now is that Onagumo's side. I'm afraid it's already in trouble." Sengoku knocked on the desk, very decisively. "Brano, immediately. Contact Onagumo and I'll ask myself how the battle is going." "Yes, Master Marshal." Brano didn't hesitate, and respectfully agreed, then quickly dialed Onagumo's phone and contacted the past Alabasta Kingdom, the desert outside the rainy land. The sky was dark and cloudy, and it looked like it was about to rain. Looking at the direction of the battlefield, the squad leaders laughed one by one, all very happy. A series of attacks. "This Onagumo is already exhausted. The battle will soon be over. Way ha ha ha." Burgess raised his arms high, his face full of excitement, and his voice was very loud. The poisonous light was still so ugly with a sinister smile. He said with a smile. The captain said, "Give him 5 minutes. Next, the captain is going to exert his strength. This elite vice admiral will be beaten and vomit blood, hee." Luo carried the demon sword and cried, as always coldly, "After Zone's awakening, his strength and attack power have been greatly improved, turning him into a real fighting machine. But he launched such a violent attack in a row, even after awakening, his body couldn't bear it." Hawkins played the cards and said deadly, "From the looks of it, today's Onagumo has no bloodshed." Jin's dark face showed a rare look of anticipation. "I don't know what method the captain will take to end this battle." Bartolomeo put his hands in the pockets of his trousers, and said like a ghost, after facing the peacock, "It is a tiger. It would be best if the captain could use this trick." Cavendish shrugged his shoulders and sighed, "The captain is still the best. He is calm and calm. Just raise your hands and you can reject everything." Onagumo, on the other hand, looks like the attack is very violent, but it has no effect at all, and it is too tired to die. It's just garbage. Kuro pushed his glasses and said calmly and rationally, "Next, the captain will start the fight seriously. Judging from the captain's character, within 3 moves, this battle will definitely end." Kane, Vivi Isho, and politely said, "You are right, it must be over within 3 strokes. This Shichibukai battle is coming to an end here, it's really touching." At this time, the battle area ahead showed such a picture. Chris and Onagumo stood opposite each other, and the smoke and dust filled the air between the two, and the aftermath of the battle was still there. Chris still looked very relaxed and was completely unaffected. As for Onagumo, he was breathing heavily, sweat dripping from his forehead, and he was very tired. "Damn, how can you be so powerful at such a young age?" Onagumo let the sweat drip, his face showed anger, and shouted, "Justice will never lose, I will definitely kill you. No matter what. No matter how strong your repelling ability is, you will definitely lose to justice in the end. Yes, justice is watching me, it will give me strength, and it will destroy you." Chris put his arms around him and said calmly as always, "Onagumo, it seems that you have lost confidence, so you encourage yourself. However, it's all in vain, you can't take me down, this is inevitable. 5 minutes have come. If you have to fight, then I will not be with you. I won't keep my hand in the future, even if you don't die, it's absolute damage. So, what are you going to choose, Onagumo?" Onagumo stared at Chris coldly, and said coldly, "You sound like you can kill me, what a joke. I said it before, betting on the name of justice will definitely take you down. Giving my life for justice is exactly what I want. Keep fighting and let me see your true strength, Chris." After speaking, the 8 feet clenched the handle of the knife, and stomped on the sand surface, making a round pit, and the dust Vivi raised. After accumulating explosive power, he will rush towards Chris and start a life and death struggle. Suddenly, a crisp voice came from his arms. "Blue blue brew. The big guys have always mentioned the day tiger, but they haven't released any pictures. just the one above. This move will not be used for the time being, it will be released later, please wait patiently. 185. No way but to make Chris Shichibukai. Call from headquarters. Hearing the voice of the phone bug, Anagumo withdrew the offensive, the violent breath gradually dissipated, and calm was restored. Taking a breath, he took out the phone bug from his arms, and without the slightest hesitation, answered the phone immediately. Anagumo, I'm Sengoku. Phone bug simulates the appearance of Sengoku, wearing a pair of glasses, looks gentle, vivid and lifelike. Anagumo straightened his face and said respectfully, Master Marshal, you called, what's the matter? What's the situation now, have you caught Chris? Sengoku looked serious, didn't talk nonsense, and asked directly. The generals quieted down one by one and listened carefully, all wanting to know what the result was. Silence. No answer. Phone bug imitated Anagumo's appearance, showing a look of embarrassment, very depressed. Marshal Sengoku, let you down, I can't take Chris. His strength is too strong, his ability is very strange, no matter what. Matter what I do, even with all my strength, I can't hurt him in the slightest. Failed, Master Marshal, I admit that I failed in this mission. Girls looked at the battlefield, and when they saw Anagumo talking with the headquarters, they were all excited and started talking. Nami blinked her big eyes, and said something with a sweet and pure smile on her beautiful face. Okay, now the headquarters know Chris's strength, and will definitely not let Anagumo continue to fight. That is to say, the headquarters will definitely agree to let Chris become Shichibukai, ha ha ha. Alvita put the big iron bar in front of him, and Isho said with a smile, it's been more than 5 minutes. If Anagumo continues, it must be a disastrous ending. The sweetheart queen stroked her pale blonde hair and smiled sweetly, this situation is undoubtedly the best. After all, we are going to become Shichibukai, and if we hurt the elite vice admiral of the headquarters, I'm afraid it will cause Marine's hatred. If that's the case, it will definitely be troublesome to become Shichibukai. Betty spit out the smoke from her mouth, calm as always, what's the trouble, it's not that complicated. If the headquarters does not agree, then we will continue to set off and kill Gecko Moria next time. If Marine doesn't agree, then kill Fish Man Jinbei. Unless Marine isn't afraid of our threats, she'll agree. Princess Vivi looked at Anagumo's direction, her face was full of hope, and she began to pray. I hope the headquarters can agree to end this battle. Let Chris-sama become Shichibukai smoothly, this is the best for everyone, and let the war end here. Robin folded his black and beautiful hair, and Yingying Isho said, since the headquarters is calling at this time, it must have a special meaning. It's okay, the battle will definitely stop next, and Chris will become Shichibukai. Reiju touched his delicate chin, and he was generous, dignified and elegant, no way, who made the Marines underestimate Chris's strength. Send an elite vice admiral over, destined to have no mission. Speaking of which, after this battle, the soldiers know very well about Chris's strength, and will not underestimate Chris in the future. Inside the office. Be quiet. The air seemed to stop flowing, and everything fell silent. Mission failed, hearing Anagumo say that, Akainu was the first to react, and he reprimanded with anger on his face. Anagumo, do you know what you're talking about? Could it be that a newcomer who has just entered the Great Waterway, you can't deal with it? Are you going to abandon justice and discredit it, Anagumo? Asking three questions in a row shows how dissatisfied Akainu is with Anagumo. As the leader of the Hawk faction, his subordinates are so bad, which makes his face dull, and the anger in his heart, like a volcano, is about to erupt. Doberman frowned, with a rare expression of disbelief on his cold face, and said something very eagerly. How is it possible, Anagumo, your strength, I know best. It's incredible that you can't even take Chris. Borsellino leaned back on the chair, tilted his head, and said yin and yang strangely, oh, young people today, it's really scary. Even the veteran vice admiral of the headquarters is not an opponent, isn't it? It's really scaring the old man to death. Yamakaji took a breath, his face was full of surprise, and he couldn't believe it and said, with Onagumo's strength, I still can't take Chris. This is too scary, I can't believe it. Momonga shook her head and sighed, it seems that we all underestimated Chris's strength, which is why this situation occurs. But then again, is Chris Quasi-Admiral's strength? How is this possible? Chaton Tokikake sat up straight, changed his airy appearance before, and became serious. It seems that all this is the same as what the Crane staff said, Chris's strength is indeed extraordinary. This young man, mysterious and powerful, really cannot be underestimated. Kuzan was completely drowsy, and it was rare to show a serious expression. Let's stop guessing, listen to what Onagumo has to say, and then analyze it later. Hearing Onagumo say this, Momosugi sighed inwardly and praised, Chris did it, and from tomorrow, he will really become Shichibukai. The goal is achieved step by step, the darkness is over, and the dawn of dawn is about to come. It's really exciting. At this time, Sengoku patted the desk, looked serious, and said solemnly, Onagumo, the specific battle process, you can report it now. Hearing Akainu's accusation from the other side, Onagumo felt more and more guilty, but since Sengoku asked the question, he couldn't think about it. He cheered up, restored the appearance of a soldier, hurriedly reported the situation, and explained it in detail. Master Marshal, I am now in the Alabasta Kingdom, the desert outside the city's reign. Crocodile was knocked unconscious when I left the troops and rushed over. After that, in the desert, I had a big fight with Chris. I didn't stop fighting until you called. Master Marshal, Chris's Paramesha's fruit-repelling ability, and his body can generate a powerful repulsive force, repelling all attacks. Onagumo glanced at Chris's direction and said solemnly, and his fighting technique is very powerful. Double fists hit the air quickly. Under the action of friction, every time he punches, a flame will appear in the air. This fighting technique, he named it, Toward the Peacock. In addition, his two-color hockey is very skilled, only stronger than me. Master Marshal, I have used all my cards, but I still can't hurt him in the slightest, and they are all rejected. But I believe that his repulsive force must have a limit. As long as I persevere, I will definitely be able to defeat him. At this time, Chris put his hands in his trouser pockets, and said lightly, Onagumo, it seems that you still can't see the gap between us. Just relying on your strength, you also want to take me down, don't be too self-righteous. Sengoku, Crocodile has been defeated by me. It turns out that I am the most suitable Shichibukai, and this position can only belong to me. Hearing Onagumo's report and Chris's confident tone, the generals in the office all fell silent. Bosses, Shishion mentioned it a few times, but no pictures were released. That's it for the above. 186. Chris becomes Shichibukai and prepares to start the battle for the squad leader. The fist hits the air, forming a flame. Garp patted the desk, laughed, and said happily, such a fighting technique is not ordinary, ha ha ha. Borsellino leaned back on the chair, crossed Erlang's legs, continued to die, and said something strange. Fighting technique is strong, but also three-color hockey, and can also repel attacks. Ouch, today's young people are really scary. Akainu sat upright, his face completely darkened, and said angrily, damn pirate, absolutely kill him. Justice cannot be smeared. Only by solving him can justice be carried through to the end and shine on the whole sea. Doberman frowned, and said solemnly, Onagumo is fierce and has a lot of combat experience. Even if he can't win Chris, then even if I replace him, the result will be the same. Kuzan looked serious and said, it turns out that Chris's strength has reached the level of the elite vice admiral. So if you want to take him, you have to use admiral. Only in this way can it be done once and for all, and there will be no future troubles. Yamakaji took a breath, and Vivi smiled and said, Paramesha rejects the fruit, and cooperates with observation haki. In this way, you can accurately deflect the opponent's attack and be completely invincible. Momonga nodded with a solemn expression. Even if Anagumo failed, even if we were replaced, it would definitely be the same result. If you want to win Chris, you have to send to Elite Vice Admiral, or you can only let Admiral come out. There is no other possibility. Momoshiki leaned back on the chair, crossed Erlang's legs, put his arms around him, and said coldly. In addition to the Elite Vice Admiral and Admiral, there are Admiral alternates at this level. If you let me go, I will definitely take Chris, there is no other possibility. Chaton Tokikake shrugged his shoulders, and said with a smile, that's not necessarily, there is no such absolute. This Chris, judging from the current situation, even if I go over, I may not be able to win him. At this time, Staff Officer he crossed his hands, supported his chin, and the light of wisdom flashed in his eyes, and said slowly, as I expected, we have encountered the worst situation. Chris's strength is stronger than we imagined. We did underestimate him, which must be admitted. Who can believe that such a young kid has such terrifying combat power? It's really incredible. Staff Officer he looked at the generals present and said in an old voice, even Anagumo can't take him down, this strength is enough. Since the above has agreed, then I suggest that Chris take the position of crocodile and become the new King Shichibukai. This guy's character is so out of character. He's definitely not willing to be calm. Let him become Shichibukai, maybe he can open up a new situation for Marine. But crocodile, this guy must be handed over. This is not negotiable. After listening to Staff Officer Crane's words, all the generals looked at Sengoku in unison, waiting for him to make a decision. Sengoku leaned back in his chair, rubbed his forehead, and said with a sigh, there is no other way but to make him the new Shichibukai. Anagumo, you have heard what the Crane staff said, so let's deal with it like this. Anagumo was very unwilling, he had no choice and dared not promise anything. Nodding his head, he said respectfully, Master Marshal, I have heard it all. Turning his head to look at Chris, with a complicated look on his face, you have heard all these words, what will you choose next? Give it a good time. Chris still put his hands in his trouser pockets, and said calmly, we will be a partnership in the future. I can't refuse such a small request. Sengoku, Shichibukai substitution, when will this news come out? Sengoku opened his mouth, and closed his mouth was also Sengoku, which made Anagumo angry, stared at Chris coldly, and said something. Chris, show some respect, what a lofty position, how can you be called that? At this time, Sengoku was very decisive and said directly, tomorrow. After speaking, without any hesitation, I cut off the phone, and the call ended here. Chris ignored Anagumo's words, and walked directly in the direction of the rain, his back looked very relaxed and unrestrained. Anagumo looked at Chris silently, took a puff of cigarette, his eyes flickered, and he was debating whether to launch a sneak attack. For him, as long as he can complete the task, no matter what method he uses, it doesn't matter. Anagumo, if you dare to do it, I will kill you. Remember, don't challenge my bottom line. Chris didn't look back, and continued to walk forward. The sound was not loud, but it contained an unquestionable taste, which was not to be underestimated. Sure enough, hearing Chris' threat, Anagumo narrowed his eyes and gave up the idea of a sneak attack completely. After all, Chris owns observation haki, and it's basically impossible for a sneak attack to succeed. What's more, now that the headquarters has made a decision, there is really no need to toss and bring Crocodile back, that's enough. The most important thing is that what Chris said is not. Just kidding, if you dare to do it yourself, you will probably fall here today. Successful, tomorrow we will be Shichibukai, way ha ha ha. Burgess raised his arms and shouted excitedly. Took steps to keep up. King's face showed a rare excited look. I got on the boat from South Blue, sailed all the way, and finally became Shichibukai, hee hee. Luo, carrying the demon knife and crying, changed his icy face. Vivi said with a smile, "It's incredible, from tomorrow onwards, we will be real big shots. Shichibukai, the world's top pirate, tomorrow belongs to us." Cavendish laughed, very happy. Jin carried it. "The devil fruit he wants to eat is from this guy." He had asked Chris before what devil fruit would be best to eat. And Chris's answer is explosive fruit. In Chris's words, this Paramesha devil fruit is full of potential. As long as the development is in place, it can completely stand in the ranks of the top powerhouses. "I'm going to be Shichibukai tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to having a party again." Jin's dark face was full of interest. Van Auger tapped his gun on the shoulder and said with a faint smile, "Tomorrow, another fork in fate." Bartolomeo took a big step, opened his hands, and looked excited. "We have succeeded. From tomorrow onwards, the whole sea will spread our name. It's great, I'm so excited, ha ha ha." Hawkins was still dead, and said in a low voice, "The captain's goal has been achieved, and there is a big event next, the battle for the squad leader." Kuro habitually pushed his glasses and said calmly and rationally, "As soon as the newspaper comes out tomorrow, the whole sea will boil, there is no doubt about that. Now that the goal has been achieved, the most important thing next is to determine the order of the squad leaders, and we can't continue to delay." Lafitte turned his cane, a smile appeared on his white face, and said very gentlemanly, "Although I already knew that the captain would definitely become Shichibukai. But when this day came, I was still so excited that I couldn't calm down at all." Dory laughed and said, "Next, I have to be stationed here, to contribute to the establishment of the branch, Carrying the giant axe, Brigitte agreed. "Go back and contact the warriors of Elbaf and ask them to send some giants over to guard the branch with us. I haven't seen people from my hometown for a long time, I really look forward to their arrival, Kapapapapa." Ikulem was extremely excited, shed tears of happiness, and said intermittently, "It's great, everything is over. Now, the kingdom of Alabasta can finally develop, it's really great, woo-woo." At this time, Nikita looked at the girls and said in a very sincere tone, "Please take me, I want to join you, I don't want to be captured by Marine, I beg you." An anxious look appeared on Marian's face, and she quickly followed, "Me too, please take me with my sisters, don't abandon me. And me, please let me join you too." Sarah also knew that the situation was critical, and quickly begged for mercy. Baccarat looked at the three of them and said dignifiedly and elegantly, "The squad leaders didn't do anything before, they just thought you would join the fleet. Okay, hurry up and follow. If there is anything, we will talk about it on the way." Sarah 3 nodded again and again, and her pretty face was full of gratitude. Thank you so much." Looking at the girls, the father called to the mother and pleaded, "Please, take me with you. I don't want to be caught, please." Daz Bones lay quietly on the ground, looking at the dark clouds in the sky, and said dully, "Save your energy, they can't take us. Since you've lost the battle, you must be prepared to be caught, there's nothing you can do about it. The other cadres don't care about these." They cried and shouted one by one, hoping that someone could take them away and rescue them from the sea of misery. Hearing the wailing of the cadres, the three of Sarah didn't turn their heads, followed the girls and left in a hurry. Now that disaster is imminent, how can the three of them manage so much? Taking care of themselves first is the most important thing. Onagumo stood quietly, watching Chris and the others leave without saying a word. For him, just taking the crocodile is enough. As for whether other people leave or not, he doesn't care at all, completely ignores it. Damn Chris, today's shame, I have all written down. Next, I will practice frantically, and I will definitely become stronger. I swear by justice that one day, I will definitely take you down and send you into Impel Down with my own hands. Next time, I will definitely succeed, justice will prevail. Guys, Yikai also mentioned it many times, but he didn't release any pictures, just the one above. This is the most powerful trick of the fighting technique, and it doesn't appear that fast. 187. The explosive fruit develops to awakening, destroying an island in an instant. Great, the captain is finally going to be Shichibukai, ha ha ha. Shichibukai is ours, quack. Long live Captain Chris, long live, long live. Wow wow, tomorrow will become Shichibukai, is this true? I'm not dreaming, hee hee hee. Bang bang bang, beat gongs and drums, warmly celebrate Captain Chris becoming Shichibukai, la la la. Become Shichibukai, spread flowers to celebrate, and drink spicy food in the future. Anyone who sees it will feel majestic, ha ha ha. Of the crew members, the girls were also very happy, with beautiful smiles on their pretty faces, and they began to talk. Karina's beautiful eyes flowed, revealing a sly color, and said with a smile, "It will be in the newspaper tomorrow, and the whole world will be shocked, hee hee." That's right, I'm really looking forward to the arrival of tomorrow. I must buy a few more newspapers by then, Haley ha 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 ha. Corona flew around in the air, making a silver bell-like laughter, crisp and sweet, very nice. Carmen nodded, and Isho said with a smile, "Becoming a Shichibukai is our most important goal right now. Now that the plan has been realized, what needs to be done next is go to the new world, lay down a country, and use it as a base." Alvida carried a big iron rod and walked with graceful steps, still so charming, said something. It used to be a petty fight, not worth mentioning at all. From tomorrow, we will be Shichibukai, the most powerful pirates in the ocean. Every move will attract Marine's attention, even pirates from all walks of life will also stare at us. This is a big man, and it has attracted the attention of the world. Queen Sweetheart stroked her pale blonde hair, and said with a smile, "Isn't that very good, just like the brightest star in the night sky, dazzling." I remember there is a saying in Chris's sayings, if you can't have a perfect life, why not come and go heroically? When life is alive, it should be vigorous, and let everyone remember it, so as to not come to this world in vain. Betty took a breath, calm as always, and agreed. Tomorrow Chris becomes Shichibukai, that's a real big shot, and he'll be remembered all over the world, and everyone will know his name. From this point of view, Chris has made a name for himself, and his life has not been in vain. Lasha looked in the direction of the rain, Maimu smiled, and said with a look of relief, Crocodile was defeated, and Chris became Shichibukai again. Next, everything will get better and better. The desert under our feet will eventually become an oasis, and it will be full of greenery at that time. Nami blinked her big eyes and smiled sweetly and charmingly. Today is really exciting, I really want to have a banquet immediately, ha ha ha. Kaya is sweet and Isho, and said with curly eyebrows, tomorrow I must get up early and read the newspaper as soon as possible, I am really looking forward to it. Makino nodded, very gentle and generous, and said something. What will be written on the newspaper at that time? It will definitely exaggerate and describe Chris perfectly. Princess Vivi had a beautiful smile on her face. I'll contact my father later and tell him the good news. Speaking of which, the sky is now covered with dark clouds, and the people must be looking forward to it, waiting for the arrival of the rain. Great, defeat Crocodile, the country will usher in the reign of happiness, and everything will get better and better. Reiju touched his delicate chin and said dignifiedly and elegantly, looking at this situation, it will rain later. It's a celebration of Chris becoming Shichibukai, and a sign of the kingdom of Alabasta, where deserts will become oases and ruins will become bustling cities. It can be said that the rain came very timely. Bakura folded his crimson hair together, raised his eyebrows, and said something generously. Chris became Shichibukai, the news is so shocking. I believe that many people will not be able to sleep at night, and will stay up all night, waiting for the first time to read the newspaper tomorrow morning. At this time, Robin looked at the three of Sarah, Vivi Isho, and said intellectually, Chris will set up a branch in Alabasta. We worked together before, and in the following days, it will be the same. The three of you, fight me in the future, there's no problem. Nikita held up a small umbrella and said exaggeratedly, no problem, firmly obey the order. Mary Ann nodded again and again, with a relieved look on her face. Very high, you don't have to leave Alabasta, it's really nice. Master Chris is so powerful, and being his subordinate, I can be protected in the future, and I don't have to worry about anything anymore. Sarah brushed her water blue hair, and said with a smile, I don't want to leave the kingdom of Alabasta either. It's undoubtedly the best thing to stay here. Also, this country is going to develop rapidly, and I would love to stay here and witness the whole process. After half an hour. Rain, the basement of the casino. With a creaking sound, the wooden door was slowly opened, and a crisp sound echoed in the quiet underground space. This is where Crocodile lives, and there must be a lot of good stuff in there. Robin stepped into the hall, looked at the crowd, smiled Isho and said, if I guess correctly, these. There must be devil fruits in the room. As for the treasures, there must be a lot of them. As soon as she heard this, Nami, a little money fan, her eyes lit up immediately, her pretty face showed excitement, and she hurriedly said something. There are a lot of treasures here, that's great, it all belongs to us, ha ha ha. Karina looked at Nami, her beautiful eyes were shining, and she said quickly, stop talking nonsense, let's hurry up and find it, this girl can't help it anymore. Corona floated in the air and said with a smile, and me, let's find treasures together, this princess is also looking forward to it. Then, these three quirky beauties, without saying a word, hurriedly selected a room and went to find the treasure. Except, the three of them, the crew members below didn't need Chris to remind them at all, they hurriedly started, rummaging through the boxes and looking for good things. For them, their favorite thing to do is snatch treasures. I'll call my father and report the situation to him. I believe my father will be very happy. Vivi's beautiful and fair face showed excitement, and she walked to the side with a smile on her face. Ikolem followed, and said happily, Princess, I will accompany you there, and it will be much more convenient to explain it when the time comes. Ran fast and made a croaking noise, and quickly followed. Reiju brushed her pink hair, her eyebrows curved, elegant and noble. Speaking of making a phone call, I also have to report to my father. After speaking, he walked to the side and prepared to report the matter of Chris to the family. And me, I'm going to call my father too. Kaya smiled sweet and pure, and walked to the side. Desire looked around and praised, as expected of Shichibukai's residence, it looks like style. Robin is right, Crocodile, as Shichibukai, must have a lot of good things in his hands. The amount of accumulated wealth must be huge. As for the devil fruits, I believe these. It's no problem to find one or two in the room. Meaty stroked her pale blonde hair and looked at the huge crocodiles in the pool, only to see them swimming happily and leisurely. This is the banana crocodile, it looks really big. Crocodile's hobby is really too strange, it is really incomprehensible that he would raise such a terrifying big guy. Carmen shrugged and said casually, if there is a banquet tomorrow, you can kill one and serve it. These crocodiles eat fat and fat. They are definitely the top ingredients. The food they make must be delicious. Alvita smiled beautifully and looked expectantly. After you said that, I really want to try it now, it must be delicious. At this time, Chris put his hands in his trouser pockets and said calmly, Jin, come with me. After speaking, without any hesitation, he walked directly towards the room on the left and walked over. Okay, Captain. Jin's dark face showed a rare look of excitement, and without saying a word, he hurriedly followed. At this moment, his mood was really happy to the extreme. As long as he eats the explosive fruit of Paramesha, he has the opportunity to become the top powerhouse, and no one can stop him. This time, the strength of the team has become stronger again, way ha 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 ha. Burgess raised his arms and laughed loudly. A poisonous laugh, he coughed and said, even if he eats the explosive fruit, he is not my opponent. This time the battle for the squad leader, he still has no hope. Luo carried the demon sword and cried, as cold as always. The captain said, if this devil fruit is developed to the level of awakening, then the combat power displayed is absolutely terrifying. Hawkins said in a low voice. His face has changed, and he has the aptitude to become a strong man. Bartolomeo touched his nose ring, laughed and said something. Our luck is indeed the strongest. Even something as unbelievable as the explosion fruit has been obtained by us, ha ha ha. Cavendish turned his head to look at the surrounding rooms, his face full of interest. I'm more curious now what devil fruit I can find later. Maid, you all ate the devil fruit one by one, and all of you became stronger. But I have nothing. If you don't eat devil fruits, then this young master will really become the last existence. No, I will never hesitate to eat a suitable devil fruit in the future. I will eat it directly. Van Auger tapped the gun on the shoulder, and said with a blank face, sure enough, if you want to get the treasure, you still have to find a big man to start. If the 4 emperors are killed, then the amount of good things we can get must be astronomical. Kuro pushed his glasses, and his eyes flashed with wisdom. The captain gave a very high evaluation of the explosion fruit. As long as Jin works hard to develop, its future strength will definitely surpass us. According to what the captain said, if the fruit is developed to awakening, the entire space will explode, which can instantly destroy an island. Therefore, there is no doubt that the legend of Jin will be left on the ocean in the future. Lafitte stood his cane in front of him, and said politely and very gentlemanly, at that time, my position as the captain will have to be given up. However, if you want to develop to the level of awakening, you can't do it without a few years. Therefore, Jin still has a long way to go if he wants to become the top powerhouse, not so fast. Guys, the banana crocodile has been mentioned before, but none of the pictures have been released, the one above is the only one. Regarding the explosion fruit, the author believes that this is a very powerful devil fruit. What do you think? 188. Reiju, make sure to make Chris fall in love with you. Rain, casino basement, somewhere in the corner. Reiju stood quietly, slim, graceful, slender figure, unobstructed at a glance. After seeing it, it was very fascinated. Is truly a peerless beauty. At this moment, she slowly took out the phone bug. Without any hesitation, she dialed the phone directly. Brew brew brew. A crisp bell gradually rang, echoing in the corner, pleasant to the ear. Without making Reiju wait any longer, the ringing stopped, the call was connected, and there was a rather urgent voice from the opposite side. Reiju, how is it? Is the result out? Phone bug imitated Judge's expression, with a worried look on his face, as if he had encountered something extraordinary and couldn't wait for a second. It turned out that as soon as Reiju landed in the kingdom of Alabasta, he contacted Judge at that time and reported the latest developments. After that, Judge has been in anxiety, waiting for good news from Reiju. Yeah, has the result come out? Has this guy Chris succeeded? Let's talk about it, Reiju. Niji leaned against the chair, crossed Erlang's legs, and urged him. Yuji put his feet on the table, put his arms around him, and said with a sneer, I won't be beaten to death. Is Shichibukai, he is a big man in the ocean. Normal for him, hee, to be killed by crocodile. IG stood by the sofa and said with a blank face, if he hadn't been slaughtered, that would have been the best. It won't be long before I find him personally, trample him under my feet, torture him severely, and make his life worse than death. Damn bastard, I won't give up until I kill him. Obviously, after being defeated by Chris, he held a grudge and listed Chris as the target of his death, and he must take revenge. To the anger of the three of them, Reiju turned a deaf ear and took it all seriously. Flicking her pink hair, she revealed a gentle and pleasant smile on her beautiful and fair face, and said in a sweet voice, Father, the result is here. Tomorrow morning's paper will publish the news that Chris has become Shichibukai. Father, now you don't have to worry about anything anymore. Our goal of dominating North Blue can definitely be achieved. Silence. 4 people on the opposite side looked at each other, all stunned, and they didn't respond for a while. Yuji was the most impulsive, sat up straight, and quickly asked, Reiju, what nonsense are you talking about? It's impossible. Just the bastard Chris, he can beat Shichibukai, no kidding, bastard. Niji frowned, and said with an angry look, how can he succeed with such rubbish? I don't believe it. Waved his hand, preventing the 2 of them from saying more. Reiju, tell us about the specific process. Judge gradually calmed down and said very seriously, Reiju, explain the whole process in detail. Remember, what I want to listen to is all, even any detail, must not be missed. Reiju looked at a pot of plants beside him, touched it lightly with his jade hand, and smiled. Isho said something. Father, Chris owns the Conqueror Haki, you know that. After we landed in Alabasta, Chris used the Conqueror Haki to tame a sand scorpion and let it act as a foot power. As we approached the rain in the city, Crocodile's men, members of the Baroque Works Club, intercepted us. Lafitte and the others took action and quickly dealt with Crocodile's men. Reiju blinked his beautiful eyes and said with a smile, at this moment, Crocodile arrives. Chris didn't make a move, just watched, let Lafitte and the others make a move, and fought with Crocodile. There is no doubt that Lafayette and the others are not the opponents of Crocodile, and in the end they can only ask Chris to come out. Father, Chris' character has always been fierce and domineering. He fights bravely and will not drag the water. He knocked out Crocodile in just 2 strokes. Reiju took a graceful pace, walked a few steps, and said with a sweet smile, I thought it was over, but I didn't expect that something changed at this time. Vice Admiral Onagumo, the elite of the headquarters, rushed over quickly and wanted to take Chris and prevent him from becoming Shichibukai. Then, words were finished, a urging voice came from the other side. Judge stood up, a look of surprise on his cold face. Hurriedly said, what did you say? Onagumo came over. He is a very powerful vice admiral in the headquarters. Even if he is not the first, he can at least be ranked in the top 3. His combat power is so terrifying that he can't beat Chris. How is this possible? Yuji looked at the 2 elder brothers and asked curiously, who is Onagumo, have you heard of it? Niji nodded, frowned and said, Onagumo belongs to the Hawks. He is notoriously cruel and has a strong and domineering personality. There are so many vice admiral in the headquarters, and his strength can basically be said to be the strongest existence. IG looked solemn and echoed, this is the veteran vice admiral, the 2-color hockey and the combat experience, all of them are the most abundant. I don't believe it anymore. With Chris' strength, how could he be Onagumo's opponent? It's impossible. Reiju was not surprised by the doubts of the 4 of them, but felt normal. The previous call, Reiju told them that Chris has the strength of Admiral and no one can beat him. However, the 4 of them didn't believe it at all. They agreed that she was talking nonsense and was bewitched by Chris. You didn't believe what I said before, but this time I'll let you know that Chris is stronger than you think. At this time, Reiju's heart was full of pride, and at the same time, a feeling of admiration rose, and he admired Chris so much. This man is so mysterious and powerful, which is really admirable. In this world, I will never find a better young man than Chris. In Reiju's mind, such a thought flashed in an instant. His admiration for Chris was like a surging river, like the Yellow River flooding out of control. Shaking his head gently, throwing these thoughts out of his mind, Yingying Isho said, Father, you heard right. Onagumo is very powerful, but Chris's combat power has reached the admiral level. No matter what Onagumo attacked, even if he did his best and risked his life to fight, the final result would be the same. After fighting for a while, Onagumo received a call from the headquarters and reported the battle situation. Finally, Marshal Sengoku made a decision, as long as Crocodile is handed over to Marine, then Chris will be Shichibukai. And Marshal Sengoku said that tomorrow morning's newspaper will publish this news. Startled. Shocked. 4 people on the opposite side were all shocked. Their minds went blank, they stopped thinking, and couldn't say a word. Except for IG, the other 3 could no longer sit still, and stood up one by one, dumbfounded, as if they had seen a ghost. Sure enough, I was shocked. See if you dare to underestimate Chris, Reju's alluring face showed a shallow smile, and his eyebrows were curved, and he felt heartfelt joy for Chris. This man, no matter what. When is it so outstanding, it is really a godlike existence. At this moment, a loud laughter came from the opposite side, and the voice was extremely loud. Judge spread his hands, raised his head and laughed, with a frantic look on his face, and said very excitedly, "Okay, it's really great, ha ha ha. Chris really became Shichibukai, and he really did. Amazing, it's really amazing. The goal of dominating North Blue can finally be achieved, and Germa will usher in a bright future." Immediately afterwards, Judge looked at the sky outside the window, only to see blue sky and white clouds, full of a sense of height and vastness, which was so fascinating. Tears flowed quietly, blurring his eyes, and Judge choked up, crying and saying something. In this life, Germa will surely come to North Blue again and restore its former glory. The undead of the motherland, you don't have to wander anymore, you can finally rest in peace, woo woo woo. The 3 brothers looked at each other, frowned one by one, and their faces showed incredible looks. Yuji gritted his teeth and said angrily, "Chris really succeeded, he actually did it, damn it." Niji sneered and said disdainfully, "He is younger than me, how could he have the strength of Admiral, stop joking. Even if he is better than me, I won't recognize him, you bastard." Waved his hand and said coldly, "Since he has become Shichibukai, the cooperation has officially started. That's fine, let's make good use of him, let him cut through thorns for us, and drain all his power. After we dominate North Blue, then we will clean him up and torture him to death." At this time, Judge wiped away his tears, and gradually came back to his senses. "Reju, when the newspaper comes out tomorrow, I will personally call Chris to finalize the cooperation. Now, here's a task for you, no matter what, make Chris fall in love with you. With your beauty and dignified and elegant temperament, you can absolutely fascinate him, make him willing to do things for you, and even give everything for you." Judge had a firm look in his eyes, and said very seriously, "As long as you take down Chris, we will have a super thug in the future. In the battle to dominate North Blue, let him rush to the front and be responsible for dealing with the powerhouses from all walks of life. Such a good combat power, if it is not used reasonably, it is simply stupid. Reju, go all out, as fast as you can, take down Chris, did you hear that?" Hearing what Judge said, the 3 brothers laughed in unison, very happy. Yuji laughed and said with great excitement, "Yes, such a good shield must be used well, and it must not be missed." Niji showed a cruel smile and said he, "Send him to the front line, and then it will consume all the energy to kill him. To contribute to Germa, even if he is killed, he will die well, ha ha ha." Ichi sneered and said, "No, it's better not to be killed, I still want to kill him myself." Broken. At this moment, Reju's heart is bleeding and the pain is extreme. "Why am I your daughter? How can you be so cruel, father?" Reju's face did not change, but his heart was already riddled with holes, and he was deeply hurt by Judge. She felt so helpless, so miserable, like an abandoned puppy, no one wanted her anymore. In order to dominate North Blue, for such an illusory goal, he sold his own daughter. More sad it became. If it wasn't for the phone call, Reju really wanted to cry and wanted to vent. She did not refute, nor did she try to persuade. Because she knew very well that no matter what she said, Judge could not change her decision. In order to dominate North Blue, he could do anything, and he couldn't care about his own life or death, nor would he care about his own feelings. The end, Reju's expression remained unchanged. He nodded slightly, and Vivi said with a smile, "Father, don't worry, I will do my best." "Someone is coming, I'll hang up first, my father." Hearing Reju's reply, Judge was still expressionless, and said coldly, "Remember to speed up and don't delay." Then, the phone hangs up, and the call ends here. "I like Reju very much, I like Reju very much, I like Reju very much," and the important thing is said 3 times. Reju is really too gentle, a good wife and a good mother, so I dedicate a chapter to describe her. Everyone forgive me. 189. No, Vivi must not like Chris. Casino basement, another corner. There are 3 people and 1 animal here. It was Princess Vivi, Rasha, Ekalem, and the runner. If the king knows the news, he will definitely be very happy, blah blah blah. Ekalem couldn't speak smoothly, hummed a song, and said with a smile, "Vivi, hurry up and call, I really want to see the king happy." Rasha nodded. Sweet Isho, said something. "Yes, I believe His Excellency the king is absolutely very happy." Running fast, he nodded his head, let out a croak, and agreed. Princess Vivi's brows twitched, and Isho said with a smile, "I also really want to see father's smile, he hasn't smiled for a long time. Every day I worry about domestic affairs, I don't want to eat, I have lost a lot of weight. But from now on, all this will be in the past, and the king no longer has to worry about anything." Without hesitation, I took out the phone bug and dialed it directly. Blue blue. The opposite side didn't make Vivi wait long, and answered the phone quickly. "Vivi, why do you have time to call your father?" The phone bug imitated the appearance of Cobra, with a melancholy look on his face. Listening to Cobra's low tone and looking at the vicissitudes of the phone bug, Princess Vivi felt distressed and cared about her father very much. "Father, I have great news for you. You must listen carefully." Princess Vivi cheered up, her beautiful eyes were shining, her voice was sweet and clear, and her tone was full of joy. Cobra sat on the throne, sitting upright, reluctantly recovered a little, and asked curiously, "What great news?" "Go ahead, father is listening carefully." Belle and Gaka, as the 2 patron saints of the Alabasta Kingdom, naturally stay by Cobra's side and are solely responsible for defending him. Listening to the dialogue between the father and daughter, the 2 of them were sincerely happy and hoped that the father and daughter could be so happy forever. Vivi stroked her water blue hair, which was slim and graceful, showing the style of a princess of a country. "It looks really beautiful, she is a stunning beauty. Father, the big villain crocodile, he has been defeated." Princess Vivi said with a smile, "Not only that, but all his subordinates have been defeated. In short, all the difficulties are over, our country can develop well, and the citizens can live a happy life." Quiet. Opposite side fell into silence, without the slightest sound, completely confused by what Vivi said. They were all dumbfounded, their brains stuck, and they didn't know what to say for a while. "Vivi, what are you talking about?" Cobra reacted, frowned, and with a look on his face, he asked inexplicably, "You said that Crocodile was defeated, how is this possible?" "He is Shichibukai, the most powerful pirate in the ocean, and no one can beat him." "Vivi, where did you get the news? It must be a rumor, it cannot be believed." Belle nodded and agreed. "Vivi, we haven't received any news here, how did you know that Crocodile was defeated?" Gaka laughed and said, "Princess, what kind of existence is Shichibukai? It seems that you don't know much about it. As far as Crocodile is a bastard, Marine will not take action against him, and pirates are not his opponents. What's more, if he is defeated, it will surely stir up the whole kingdom of Alabasta. But up to now it is still calm and there is no news at all." At this moment, Ekalem laughed and said happily, "Your Majesty, you heard right, Crocodile was indeed defeated. This is what I have seen with my own eyes, and there will be absolutely no problem." Running fast, his head connected, he let out a croak, and quickly echoed. Lasha Kyanshin Isho, followed by, "Lord King, I am from Alabasta and a good friend of Vivi. I can also testify that Crocodile was indeed defeated, and the people will have a good life in the future. Vivi's eyebrows are curved, and her smile is sweet and gentle. Father, I'm afraid you won't believe it, so I specially hired someone to testify. After all, this matter is too important. It's understandable that you don't believe it. Startled. Shocked. With the testimony of EPUB, the three people on the opposite side, will no longer doubt it. This news is too shocking. It is simply a fantasy. Cobra sat up straight, with a surprised look on his face, and hurriedly said, "What's going on? Tell me quickly. How could Crocodile be beaten? Who beat him?" Bell's face was full of shock, and he said incredulously, "Yes, Shichibukai. Who can be defeated? Impossible." Gaka shook his head and said in disbelief, "EPUB is a steady person, he must not be joking. But this thing is really too exaggerated, and I can't explain it. Princess Vivi is sweet Isho, beautiful and generous, very detailed explanation. This matter, we have to start from the beginning. I will tell you one by one, and after listening, you will understand. Some time ago, my partner and I received the task, to the entrance of the Great Fairway, hunt the island whale laboon. Unfortunately, we had a shipwreck, the ship was damaged and it could only float on the sea. At this time, we met the Chris pirates, and they rescued the two of us." Thinking of the past, Vivi's alluring face couldn't help showing the look of memories, and it looked more and more beautiful and charming. "On this ship, I met Captain Chris and many sisters. From their mouths, I learned a piece of news. Chris wants to go to the kingdom of Alabasta, defeat Crocodile, and become Shichibukai. Father, you may think that Chris is over his head and thinks he is too reckless. But in fact, he really has such strength, and he does what he says." Speaking of this, the pretty face showed admiration and muttered to herself, "Really, Chris is really amazing. From childhood to adulthood, among the young people I have met, there is no such outstanding person as him. I am sure that there is absolutely no young man in this world who is more perfect than Lord Chris. He is not only powerful, but also has a calm and steady personality, and is so diligent and hardworking." Vivi shook her head gently, sighed and said, "Before I knew him, I always thought I was very good. But after I got to know him, I realized that there are people outside the world, and there are heavens outside the world. Compared with him, I am nothing at all. I seem to have taken the topic too far, so let's keep talking about the business." Quietly, the more he listened, the more wrong it became. He couldn't help frowning, and muttered inwardly, "Vivi is in love with this Chris, and in his words, there is admiration for this Chris. What's the matter? Vivi has always been a dignified lady, cherishing herself and loving herself. Why did she suddenly fall in love with a certain man? No, she is my precious girl. She must not be allowed to do anything, and she must be cut off from these thoughts." Cobra didn't speak for the time being, kept silent, and planned to wait for Vivi to finish speaking, and then have a good talk with her. Anyway, Vivi likes Chris, he will never agree. This point is not negotiable. Similar to the previous chapter, the author likes Princess Vivi very much. She is so beautiful and generous, and she is so gentle, so I write a special chapter. The next chapter won't write about these. Start the real plot. 190. Crocodile's collectible, with 2 devil fruits. When I was on the boat, after listening to what my sisters said, combined with my impression of Chris, that's when I made a decision. Vivi's beautiful eyes were shining, and she smiled and said, "Tell my sisters who I am, and ask Chris to help." Thankfully, Chris agreed, and he said it himself, that he would beat Crocodile. Just today, we landed in Alabasta, and in the desert outside the rain, we settled everything. Vivi raised her eyebrows and said generously, "Just now, Crocodile's men, including himself, were all defeated. And a vice admiral came from the marine headquarters, took Crocodile away, and said he was going to be locked in Impel Down. Father, I can't explain clearly on the phone. I'll go to find you later, and I'll talk to you in detail later. It turned out that after Vivi boarded the Chris, he did not tell Cobra about his situation and did not want him to worry. After all, the opponent is Shichibukai, and if Cobra knew about Vivi's actions, he would be very worried. Therefore, after Ikaram got on the ship, Princess Vivi explained to him specially that you must not tell Cobra about this matter. That's why Cobra was completely unaware of the situation. Shocked. Incredibly surprised. 3 people on the opposite side had expressions of horror on their faces, they were really frightened. Although Princess Vivi said nothing in detail, the battle process in it must be very fierce, far from being so peaceful. It's incredible, who is this Chris who can beat Crocodile? Bell frowned, his face was full of doubts, and he really couldn't figure it out. Gaka nodded and agreed. Being able to defeat Shichibukai shows that this person is definitely not an ordinary person. If you go back and ask, you will definitely be able to find information about this person, there is no doubt about that. At this time, Cobra reacted, with an eager look on his face, and said a quick sentence. Vivi, where are you now? Are you in the rain? Vivi nodded slightly, and Yingying Isho said, Father, I am here at the rain banquet. Since Crocodile has been defeated, all the treasures he has collected belong to Chris. When I'm done here, I'll go to Albana to find you, and then we'll have a good chat. It is worth mentioning that the capital of the Kingdom of Alabasta is Albana's largest casino is Rain Banquet, located in the rainy land. Cobra waved his hand quickly and said hurriedly, Vivi, you don't have to come to me, I'll set off now and rush to the rain. Since Chris has defeated Crocodile, he is the great benefactor of the country, and the king must personally go to thank him. Okay, let's do this first, and then I'll talk about it later. Without the slightest hesitation, he hung up the phone and the call ended. Bell looked at Cobra, and said respectfully, Your Majesty, I've turned into a falcon, and I'll drive you over here quickly. Vivi Isho hurriedly followed, I'll go there too, I really want to see what Chris looks like and if he really has 3 heads and 6 arms. Cobra quickly stood up and said in a deep voice, let's go right away. Go and meet this great hero. Then, without any hesitation, the 3 of them hurriedly walked outside the palace. The king will come over in person. Lash's fair face showed surprise, and said happily, It's great, you can see the figure of the king, this is a supreme honor. Ekolem smiled, Hello, Lord King, I just happened to talk to Chris about cooperation. After all, if Chris wants to establish a branch in Rabaston, he must explain it clearly to His Excellency the King, so that the work can be better carried out. Vivi nodded and said with a smile, Since the father is coming, let's wait in peace. Okay, let's go over there and see what goodies Crocodile has collected. Then, a few people hurriedly walked towards the hall. With a creaking sound, the wooden door of a room on the left slowly opened, and 2 men came out. It's Chris and Jin. As for the room, there was a corpse lying there, that's right. The person who does it, needless to say, it must be Jin. Look at the way Jin walks, it's a success, way ha ha ha. Burgess laughed loudly, echoing in the basement. Cavendish said with a cold snort, All of you have become capable, only I didn't eat devil fruits. If I find a devil fruit later, this young master will also eat one, and I can't drag it on any longer, or it will really become the last existence. Bartolomeo put his hands in his trouser pockets and laughed, Jin, use your abilities quickly, let's see the power of the explosive fruit. The others didn't say much, and looked at Jin one by one, expecting his performance. After all, Chris has already said that this Paramesha devil fruit is not ordinary. Since you want to see it, then I will do as you want. Jin looked indifferent, without saying a word, he directly kicked a chair next to him. There was a sound of explosion, and the air became black smoke, thick black smoke, full of the smell of gunpowder. And the chair fell to the ground, and it was torn apart, all of which were charred black, exuding a pungent burnt smell. This is the explosion fruit, the very powerful Paramesha devil fruit. Jin carried the two strangely shaped weapons and said disdainfully, that guy from before was just a piece of trash. Such a powerful devil fruit, the skills developed are actually booger flicking or something. This kind of person deserves to die. He has such a good devil fruit, and he has no ability to protect it. He deserves to be slaughtered by me. Queen Sweetheart blinked her beautiful eyes, and her pretty face showed a curious look. This is the explosion fruit, it looks really powerful. Dazaya nodded and agreed. It can cause an explosion at any time, and if the opponent attacks Jin, it will also cause an explosion. Zizzo, this devil fruit is indeed very powerful, no wonder Chris would say that, so it is. Carmen shrugged and said casually, this time, the team's strength has been improved again. As long as Cavendish eats the devil fruit, then all the squad leaders will be able. Baccarat took Reiju's jade hand. Wenwan Isho leaned into her ear and said, I just called, did you run into trouble? Hearing this, Reiju was stunned for a moment, and a look of surprise appeared on Qingguo Qingcheng's face, and he muttered something. I can't hide anything from you, but you found out. It's okay, I can handle it, you don't have to worry about it. Baccarat raised his eyebrows and said dignifiedly and elegantly, that's not good, find a time in the evening, let's have a good chat. At this moment, a certain room opened and three women appeared. It was Nami, Karina and Perona. I saw Nami carrying a cloth bag, bulging, striding forward, smiling and saying something. Everyone, we have found treasure, and there are many treasures. Karina also carried a large burden on her back, her beautiful eyes flowed, and she said with a sly look, as expected of Shichibukai, the good things in hand are a lot. Gold and silver jewelry, as well as some very delicate small objects, these are all invaluable. Perona floated up and down in the air, and let out a silver bell-like laugh. Head to head, this time continue to fight Shichibukai and take away their treasure, ha 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 ha. Nojiko shook his head, sighed and said, these guys, one by one, got into the eyes of money, alas. Makino's eyebrows were crescent-shaped, very gentle, it's normal, money, everyone likes it. Midi stroked her pale blonde hair and echoed, anyway. I defeated Crocodile, what's in it, don't take it for nothing. At this moment, a burst of noisy footsteps came, and the people below were only heard shouting loudly, with a voice full of joy. Captain, found it, ha ha ha. We found 2 devil fruits, they must be very powerful, quack. Captain Chris, I found one, don't grab it from Lao Su, or I will be anxious for you, did you hear me? Fuck, I saw it first, okay. What did you find it? Go away. Don't talk nonsense, motherfucker. Hurry up and give it to the captain to see what kind of devil fruit it is. It's better to get a Logia, that's amazing, huh? Mad, don't step on me, you bastard. Guys, it's a picture of Cobra above. Since he is Vivi's father, he must put a picture. In addition, do you have any thoughts on these 2 devil fruits? You can say it in the book review area, and the author will consider it. 191. 2 devil fruits, speed fruit and swamp fruit. When the crew members said this, the first to react was Cavendish. With a look of surprise on his face, he hurriedly said, hurry up, bring it here, let this young master take a look. But don't be a rubbish devil fruit, it's better to get a Logia, then the young master will be prosperous, ho ho ho. Burgess shrugged and cursed, you cabbage, stop eating devil fruits. Be honest and be a swordsman, what devil fruit should I eat? I can't see it being wasted. The poisonous light revealed a wicked smile and said, as expected of Shichibukai, the things in the collection are rich. It's incredible that there are 2 devil fruits. Luo held the demon knife and cried, nodded and agreed, devil fruits are the treasures of the sea, very rare and rare. Crocodile was able to collect 2, which shows that he has put a lot of energy into this. Hawkins, as always dead, said something in a low voice. Unfortunately, he spent so much time collecting, and in the end everything belongs to us. If he found out, he would definitely vomit blood with anger, there is no doubt about that. Bartolomeo put his hands in his trouser pockets, laughed and said, "Great, today Jin ate devil fruit, and then cabbage too. This time, all the squad leaders are all capable. When the battle for the squad leader begins, you can have a good fight to see who has the strongest devil fruit, ha ha ha." Van Auger tapped his gun on the shoulder, expressionless. From the moment we landed in Alabasta, these things were meant to be ours. This is the so-called fate. Kuro habitually pushed his glasses and said calmly and rationally, "It turns out that big people like Shichibukai have a lot of good things in their hands. At Whiskey Peak, we got a 1, plus the 2 now, the harvest is really very rich. It can be seen that Crocodile's collection of devil fruits must have gone through a long period of time." Lafitte turned his cane. "Vivi Isho, gentle, Ben's strength has soared today, this is a big happy event. In addition to the fact that the captain is about to become Shichibukai, it's really a double happiness. It's really exciting." At this time, the people below have opened the 2 wooden boxes separately. One of them, in the shape of a pineapple, has a light brown body, and there are circles of strange patterns on it. The other one is apple-shaped and pale white in appearance, and also has the peculiar patterns unique to devil fruits. Quiet. Air seemed to be quiet, and they looked at the 2 devil fruits one by one, their eyes unblinking, very serious and focused. The first to react was Cavendish. His obsession with devil fruit is much stronger than others. "Pineapple-shaped, this is Logia." Cavendish's eyes were extremely bright, and with a look of excitement, he quickly said, "Great, this young master's chance has finally come, quack." Karina put down the big package, wrinkled her beautiful eyebrows, and asked with a puzzled look on her pretty face. "This devil fruit, I have a little impression, is indeed Logia's. But what it was, I really can't remember." Perona's beautiful eyes were shining. She gave a crisp smile, and said proudly, "You don't know this, it's better for this princess to answer it for you, hee hee. This devil fruit is Logia marsh. Once eaten, it will turn into a swamp man, and you can turn your body into a swamp." Nami nodded with a sweet and pure smile. "Not only that, but those with abilities can turn the surrounding into a swamp, leaving no room for people to stand. As long as you can't fly, then in such a situation, you will be finished. After all, once you sink into the swamp, the more you struggle, the faster you sink, and you will eventually drown in it." Alvida carried the big black iron rod, and Isho said with a smile, "Anyway. As long as it is Logia, then this fruit is destined to be no worse. Didn't Chris say that there is no strongest devil fruit, only the most rubbish user?" Betty took a breath and remained calm as always. "Speaking of which, this devil fruit is indeed very powerful." Desire brushed her red and yellow hair, her pretty face showing a look of doubt, and asked, "What about the other one? It should be Paramesha's." Kaya's sweet Isho said in a sweet voice, "I remember this, it is indeed Paramesha's. If I remember correctly, it is the Paramesha speed fruit, which can increase the speed of those who are capable. Sisters, I'm not wrong." Makino nodded, still so gentle, "It is indeed the fruit of speed, Xiaoya, you were right." Robin is shallow and Isho, intelligently and elegantly said, "No matter what. Swamp fruit or speed fruit, they, both very good. It seems that Crocodile has hidden all the good things, which is a bargain for us." Sarah disdained Isho, sarcastically, "Such a weak Shichibukai, he deserves to be killed." Mikita laughed, "That's right, since he is so weak, then Shichibukai's throne must be given up. A trash like him can't be Shichibukai, ha ha ha." At this time, Jin was still so indifferent and said something. "Although these 2 fruits are good, they are still much worse than my explosive fruits." Cavendish frowned, with a tangled look on his face, and said extremely depressed, "Both are very good, how should I choose? It's really annoying. Burgess laughed and joked, what's so tangled, it's such a simple thing to eat both, way ha ha ha. Poisonous' smile was ugly and attached, come on, eat both, so that you can become stronger. The captain said that the best is not necessarily the best. Luo was still so indifferent and expressed his opinion. Although the swamp fruit is Logia, it is not suitable for you. There is no need to choose this one. You are a swordsman. If you eat the speed fruit, then the speed of drawing the sword can be increased very quickly, and the speed of drawing the sword is the same. Hawkins nodded and agreed. Speaking of which, this devil fruit is indeed very suitable for Cavendish. As a swordsman, if he eats the fruit of speed, his combat power will increase dramatically. There is no doubt about that. Bartolomeo shrugged his shoulders very casually. If it were me, I would definitely choose Logia. Elementalization, just from this point of view, you have to choose swamp fruit. Van Augur said coldly, expressionless, it seems that this is another fork in fate. Curl looked at Cavendish, the light of wisdom flashed in his eyes, and persuaded. If you eat the swamp fruit, then your swordsmanship will be of no use at all. Luo is right, the swamp fruit is the best, but it is not suitable for you, and it will not help you much in improving your strength. I remember the captain saying that speed is power. When your speed reaches a certain level, your combat power will also soar. So, no matter what, the speed fruit is the best choice. Lafitte stood his cane in front of him, and said in a gentle manner, if you encounter such a problem, just ask the boat. In terms of devil fruits, the captain is definitely an expert, and he knows the most. Hearing this, Cavendish's eyes lit up, and he suddenly realized, yes, what is this young master struggling with? Just ask the captain and you'll be done. Quickly turned his head to look at Chris with a full smile, and hurriedly said, Captain, give me an idea. Your words are the most authoritative. As for what they said, this young master will treat them as farting and ignore them at all, ha ha ha. Everyone was too lazy to pay attention to Cavendish, and one by one they cast their eyes on Chris, waiting for him to give an answer. Chris wrapped his arms around him, calmly as always, and said lightly, such a simple thing, what are you still struggling with? In the world of martial arts, only fast is not broken. To tell you such a simple truth. Cavendish smiled a little embarrassedly, and quickly replied, actually, I also plan to choose this one, and the main thing is to listen to your advice, Captain. Okay, since even you said so, then the young master has nothing to hesitate. After speaking, without any hesitation, he directly picked up the speed fruit, sent it to his mouth, and took a big bite. When we got here, all the squad leaders ate the devil fruit and sprinkled flowers to celebrate. In addition, the swamp fruit will be eaten by all the girls. Who do you think is the best to eat? Princess Vivi, Nami, or Reiju? You can leave a message in the book review area. 192. The horror of the speed fruit, and Reiju eating the swamp fruit. Zizzo, every time I see someone eating a devil fruit, I feel so sick, I get goosebumps all over my body. Queen Sweetheart rubbed her smooth forehead, a bitter smile appeared on her pretty face, and she said helplessly. Betty took a breath, shrugged her shoulders, and said casually, I don't want to try this feeling in my life. Makino frowned, smiled Isho, and said softly, you can see how bad the Cavendish looks when you look at it. Eating a devil fruit is like eating a fly, it's nauseating. Karina shook her head and couldn't help sighing. At this time, Burgess looked at Cavendish and said with a big laugh, Cabbage, don't ink your special mother, hurry up and show your ability. The fruit of speed, I really want to see how fast you can be. A poisonous laugh, he didn't say a word, I don't know armament hockey, no matter how fast he is, he's still a piece of trash. Bartolomeo put his hands in his trouser pockets and tugged, since the captain said so, then this devil fruit must be very powerful. It is estimated that it is not much worse than the explosion fruit. Hawkins frowned and said in a low voice, I'm no longer his match, judging by my face. Luo carried the demon sword and cried, as always, coldly, "It seems that in this battle for squad leader, he will be able to get a good ranking." Kuro pushed his glasses, his serious face showed a rare expression of regret, and said with emotion, "If I had encountered this fruit earlier, I would definitely choose this one. Although the air pressure fruit is very good, it is still a lot worse than the speed fruit, and it is not a level of existence at all. According to Van Augur, this is destiny." Lafitte stood his cane in front of him, and Vivi Isho said something politely. "If he continues to fight Crocodile now, I believe he will definitely lose. But he was caught and impelled down. We can't find such an opportunity, we have to wait for the next time." At this moment, Cavendish spread his hands, smiled, and looked very excited, like a madman. "Ho ho ho ho. Too strong, is this the power of the devil fruit? This young master has finally become a strong man, ha ha ha." The voice fell, with a sound of. The man disappeared in place in an instant, and he couldn't see his movement at all, and he appeared beside the pool. Swipe. Cavendish's speed in drawing his sword was so fast that he couldn't see how he did it. Flash of sword light, a table in front of him was instantly split in half, sawdust flying, and with a bang, it fell to the ground. At this time, Cavendish still maintained the posture of drawing the knife, as if the knife was not sheathed. Back looks so unrestrained, kind of, a peerless swordsman. The sense of sight is not to be underestimated. Startled. Shocked. By Cavendish really shocked everyone, making everyone stunned and unable to react at all. Too fast, between lightning and flint, people disappear, draw swords, swing swords. It's really amazing. It's so powerful, I can't see how he shot it at all. Desia's beautiful eyes widened, her perfectly fair face was full of surprise, and she murmured, "Such a speed is too terrifying." Carmen nodded and sighed with emotion. "I have never seen anyone other than Reese, who can have such a fast speed, it is really too fast." Nami blinked her big eyes and praised, "It's really fast, my eyes are dazzling, I can't see anything at all. It's so powerful, Lord Cavendish has become so strong." Kaya's smile was sweet and pure, and she couldn't help but praise her. Lasha smiled sweetly and said, "Chris is right, this devil fruit is really powerful." Vivi raised her eyebrows. Sweet Isho said, "Great, now the team has become more and more powerful. Congratulations, it's really a big happy event." Robin looked at the girls, stroked his black and beautiful hair, and was intelligent. Now the squad leaders, all of them have become capable. Then it's everyone's turn for this devil fruit. I'm already an ability person, so this swamp fruit is destined to be missed by me. Bakura Isho is gentle and generous, and said, "Everyone is a good sister. If you have anything to say, just say it directly, there is nothing to be embarrassed about. If anyone wants to eat, then sign up and let's discuss it together." Alvita carried the big iron rod, smiled and said, "I don't have to think about it, you can figure it out." Makino blinked her beautiful eyes, gentle and dignified, "If you give me such a powerful devil fruit, it would be a complete waste. So, you don't have to think about me, you should come." Nami waved her jade hand and said carelessly, "Although the swamp fruit is powerful, the things it can produce are all mud and the like. No, this is disgusting. I don't like this devil fruit, so I'll leave it to you." Vivi brushed her water blue hair, and Yingying Isho said, "I think this devil fruit is the most suitable for Sister Reiju. She is so powerful. If she becomes Logia's ability, her strength will definitely increase greatly. Thinking about it, it is perfect." Karina nodded, her beautiful eyes flowing, revealing a sly look, and said with a smile, "Yes, I think so too. Sister Reiju is so gentle and powerful, so it's best to eat this devil fruit." The others didn't say much, they agreed one by one, and gave the swamp fruit to Reiju instead of fighting with her. Reiju brushed the pink hair in front of his forehead, and looked at Chris with beautiful eyes, elegant and noble, with a beautiful and charming smile, and asked, "Chris, I want to hear your opinion, what do you think?" 4. Chris, she is extremely trusting and will not question it at all. As long as Chris agrees, then Reiju will definitely obey Chris without questioning anything. This is the authority that is unique to Chris. This fruit is very suitable for you. Chris still wrapped his arms around him and said calmly, using the absorption properties of the swamp, you can trap your opponent in it. And you are good at using venom, and you can attack from a long distance. Combined, the two work perfectly together. As for the other advantages of swamp fruit, I won't say more, you think about it. After speaking, without any hesitation, he directly stepped forward and walked towards the door. Hearing Chris say that, Reiju nodded his head, raised his eyebrows and smiled. Isho said something. Since you said so, then I will definitely eat it. However, eating devil fruits in front of so many people is inappropriate. I don't want my image to be completely destroyed. Bakura patted her shoulder, and Yanran Isho said, congratulations, now you can also become a strong man. Betty exhaled the smoke from her mouth and agreed, if I don't work harder, it won't be long before I'll be overtaken by Reiju. Kaya clapped her little hands, smiled sweetly and gently, and said very happily, it's great, Reiju's sister has become stronger, this is really very happy. At this time, Burgess looked at Cavendish and said cursingly, hey, we're all leaving, what else do you need to pose for your mother-in-law? I saw that Cavendish still kept the action of drawing a knife, turned his back to the crowd, and was still acting cool, very narcissistic. Speaking of which, the speed fruit is really strong, and I can't see the speed of his sword at all. Luo frowned, with a solemn look on his face, and said something. At such a fast speed, it is indeed a very dangerous thing to fight with him. Venomous Isho smiled strangely and said, no armament hockey, no matter how fast he is, he can't help me. When the squad leader competes for the battle, if he dares to shoot at me, I will poison him directly, hee. Bartolomeo looked at Lafitte and laughed, Deputy Captain, I'm afraid you won't be able to keep your position. It seems that it's time to change people, ha ha ha. Lafitte was polite and gentle, and said, strength is respected, as long as he can defeat me, then the deputy captain will naturally belong to him. Kuro stepped towards the door, his eyes flashed with wisdom, and he analyzed it. Cavendish is so fast, and as a swordsman, his attack is undoubtedly the sharpest. The combination of the two can raise his combat power to a very high level. I have to say, when he learns armament hockey, he will really be able to become a top powerhouse and shock the whole sea. At Cavendish, full of jealousy, and really wanted to kill him and then take back his body. Too powerful, as long as such a body is what the little black dog wants. Seeing the jealous and angry eyes of the little black dog, Cavendish sneered and said, you guy, you have been eliminated. My young master's current speed is many times faster than yours. From now on, you will live under the shadow of this young master, ha ha ha. After I finished speaking, I quickly took big steps and walked to the door. A reader in the book review area said that the illusion fruit is also very good. When the devil fruit appears in the future, I will write this in and I will not forget it. The 193. A branch is set up, and it rains happily in Alabasta. Rain, casino, rain banquet. At this time, all the players in the casino left, and the business was temporarily closed, which seemed deserted and very quiet. When are you going to contact the village? At night. Dory was sitting at the gate of the casino, like a huge door god, looking quite a mighty hockey, enough to shock the younger generation in the past. Brigitte shook his head and said with emotion, we've been away from our hometown for so long, and I don't know if those guys can still remember the two of us. Maybe we have become the legend of the village, Kapapapapa. Just then, a voice came from the sky. I saw Belle turned into a huge falcon, with sharp eyes, reported it, and said something. Lord King, found two giants, the princess should be in the casino. Cobra sat on Belle with a look of anticipation, then let's land and meet the great hero Chris. Gaku looked up at the sky, covered with dark clouds, gloomy, and said with a smile, I haven't seen this kind of good weather for a long time, it's so perfect. How long has it been? Alabasta Kingdom, how long has it not rained? Today, that bastard crocodile is defeated, and the country is reigning, celebrating the new birth of Alabasta, and everything will get better and better. A whoosh, Belle carried the two of them and slowly landed in front of Dory and Brigitte. Dory glanced down and said with a smile, Zone's falcon-shaped ability person, this is a very rare fruit, yeah. Brigitte looked at the three of them and asked curiously, you guys, who are you, sign up. Two strong men, my name is Cobra, the kings of the kingdom of Alabasta. Cobra didn't dare to put on a show and lowered his posture. Vivi smiled and said, Master Chris saved this country. I made a special trip. I came here to thank him. I hope that the two strong men can help me introduce them. I'll do it for you. Dory's eyes lit up, he immediately became interested, and laughed, so you are the king of Alabasta, you can't see it at all. You ask the two of us to introduce you, this is impossible. With our size, how can we get into the house? Brigitte is hearty Isho, followed by, this little girl Vivi is very lovable, and I like her very much. Since you are her father, then I won't stop you, just go in. At this moment, a loud footstep sounded, and the voice of Princess Vivi sounded at the same time. Father, you came so quickly. Vivi walked towards Cobra with graceful steps, her beautiful eyes shining, and Isho said with a smile. Father, it's going to rain. Now the citizens have water to drink, so they don't have to worry about drought anymore, they'll have a good life. Equilem smiled and said quickly, Lord King, it won't be long before the desert becomes an oasis, and the ruins will become a prosperous city. Running fast and making quack quack sounds, I was very happy. Lasha Chow showed a look of relief on her face and said, those who have passed away can rest in peace. Who survive will live happily ever after. Everyone is right, I have a hunch that Alabasta is about to rise. Cobra nodded and said with a smile, Vivi, let's talk about these things later. Now, tell me about Chris Sama. There were so many men and women standing opposite. The young man on the head, wearing black clothes and pants. His face was calm and unwavering, calm and airy, and at a glance, he knew something was wrong, it was definitely Chris. Oops. Hearing what Cobra said, Princess Vivi patted her head and said with a smile, I was talking to my father, but I forgot to introduce it. Turning his head, his eyebrows were curved, and his tone was full of joy, Father, this is what I told you, Lord Chris who rescued our country. Master Chris, this is my father. Vivi looked at Chris with a sweet smile and said something. My father knew the whole process, he came from the capital Albana specifically, and wanted to thank him in person. After confirming that the young man was Chris, Cobra bowed directly to Chris without any hesitation, and said in a very sincere tone. Thank you, Lord Chris. You saved this country. On behalf of all the citizens of Alabasta, I extend my highest respect to you, thank you. Princess Vivi, Ikaram and others also quickly bowed to Chris, with a very sincere attitude and gratitude. Thank you, Lord Chris. Chris put his hands in his trouser pockets, calmly as always, and said lightly, my goal is to become Shichibukai, this is just a follow-up. Besides, Vivi is my crew and it's normal to help her. Robin, talk to the king about the establishment of the branch. After he finished speaking, he was still so decisive and walked directly into the casino, ready to continue his practice. Robin folded his black and beautiful hair, intelligent and elegant, okay, you can rest assured to practice. At this time, Cavendish said with a smile, my young master is going to practice too. Get familiar with the speed fruit earlier and develop more powerful moves. At that time, in the battle for the squad leader, this young master will come out on top and kill you one by one, quack. In laughter, people followed Chris away, very arrogant. Jin looked indifferent and said, I also went to practice, for the sake of being the strongest. Burgess shrugged his shoulders and said casually, "Anyway, there's no banquet today, so continue to practice hard. Become Shichibukai tomorrow, then have a banquet and celebrate, way ha ha ha." Luo carried the demon sword and cried, walked inside, and said coldly, "I learned a lot from the battle with Crocodile this time, and I have to go back and summarize it." Kuro pushed his glasses and said calmly, "The battle between the captain and Onagumo has given me a lot of inspiration, and it's worth thinking about." Then, the squad leaders, one by one, don't want to stay here and waste time. All of them went inside and continued to practice. Everyone has become very hardworking, which is really gratifying. Alvita is carrying a big iron rod, smiling Isho, with a beautiful and charming smile, very good looking. Desaya yawned and said a little tiredly, "I've been here all the way, I've experienced too many things, I feel a little tired. Let's talk, I'm going to rest inside, let's go to sleep first." Needy nodded, and Yingying Isho said, "Let's go, I'll accompany you in." Afterwards, these women, who were like flowers and jade, walked into the casino one by one, looking for a place to rest. Vivi looked at Cobra, took the initiative to explain, smiled sweetly, "Father, Lord Chris is such a character. He is a cultivator. He practices hard every day and doesn't waste his time on other things. And the squad leaders were influenced by him, and they all became very motivated, and they worked very hard when they practiced." Lasha nodded and said in agreement, "Lord King, don't think Chris is very cold. In fact, he is very talkative and not difficult to get along with." Suddenly, there was a loud noise in the sky. Thunder and lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the entire Alabasta kingdom, and all the citizens saw this scene. This thunder and lightning, like a call from ancient times, completely awakened Alabasta, who was sleeping. Crackling, in the sky, countless raindrops fell, and each drop was very large and spread all over the sky. The rain was torrential, and the sound was very loud. For the citizens of Alabasta, this sound is not only not messy, but very pleasant and pleasant, just like the sound of nature. All citizens, no matter what, adults and children, all ran under the heavy rain, let the heavy rain hit them, and made a thunderous roar that spread throughout the country. "It's raining, it's finally raining, ha ha ha. Heaven has eyes, God, you finally opened your eyes, woo woo woo. La la la, it's raining, everyone come out and get in the rain. Come down, let the storm come harder, quack quack. God must have heard my prayers and knew that my grandson was dying of thirst, so this rain fell. God, thank you old man. You little bastard, come out and get in the rain, why are you hiding under the eaves? Don't come again, I will beat you to death. Guys, now that Crocodile has been killed, in order to welcome the victory of Shichibukai, the next heavy rain is very necessary, there is no other meaning, just as a commemoration." 194. Chris is so good, Vivi, you must pursue him. Not only the citizens were excited, but Cobra and the others all showed surprises on their faces, full of smiles, and they were extremely happy. Great, it's finally raining. Vivi took a step forward, put her jade hand outside, felt the blow of the rain herself, her beautiful eyes were shining, and she said something with great joy. "It's really raining, I'm not dreaming, it's all real." Ikolem shook his head, and said with emotion, "It's not easy, it's really not easy, blah blah blah. In the kingdom of Alabasta, how long have I not seen rain, I can't remember." Lash's eyes were a little red, and he choked up, "With this heavy rain, the villagers can live a better life. Next, the desert will be turned into an oasis, and the village can finally begin to rebuild." Cobra laughed and was very happy. "Come on, go down a little bigger, wash away all the desert, and welcome Alabasta's new life." "Thank you Chris, I thank you again for all the people in the country." Belle smiled lightly and continued, "Today is really a festive day, everyone will remember this day." Gaka nodded and echoed, this rain has washed away all the disasters, and the country has finally ushered in the dawn. It's time to become prosperous and strong. At this time, Robin looked at Cobra, and folded his black and bright hair, intellectually and elegantly. Your Majesty, please excuse me. Next, let's talk about cooperation. Robin looked at Princess Vivi, smiled Isho and said, Vivi, you know this too, I'll leave it to you first. If anything needs to be added, I will bring it up in time. Vivi lightly nodded her head, Mei blinked, looked at Cobra, and explained in detail. Father, Chris will become Shichibukai tomorrow, and then he will continue to set off and go directly to the New World. Here in Alabasta, he plans to set up a branch to recruit newcomers from the past and strengthen the team. Sister Robin is the head of the branch and has full authority over everything. And these two giant uncles are responsible for the security of the branch and prevent people from making trouble. Vivi looked at Cobra, her beautiful eyes lit up, she remembered something, and hurriedly said something. By the way, Father, these two giant uncles, the one with the sword is called Dory, and the one with the axe is called Brigitte. These two giant uncles, more than 100 years ago, were offered a reward of 100 million Bailey, but their strength is very powerful. Startled. Shocked. Of these two giants, the three of Cobra were shocked, and their faces were full of horror. Belle looked at the two huge door gods, and said in disbelief, It's too scary to offer a reward of 100 million Bailey 100 years ago. Gaka nodded, and said with great emotion, the bounty that was offered 100 years ago has been at least multiplied many times now. These two giant uncles are really terrifying. Cobra's face was full of surprise, and he continued, the lifespan of the giants is really too long. The bounty offered 100 years ago was as high as this. Seen that the strength of the two strong men is absolutely very strong. At this moment, Dory burst out laughing, the two of us just live longer, as for strength, it's just average, Brigitte crossed his legs and said with a smile, we too old to be strong. If there is a strong man, it must be the captain. You little guys, don't praise us, you really can't afford it, Kapapa. Next, Robin, Princess Vivi and others discussed about the branch and worked out a detailed plan. Around 8:30 in the evening. Rain banquet, in a certain room. At this moment, there are two people here, yes, and her father, Cobra. It's raining all the time, and it hasn't stopped at all. It's really too much. Vivi stood in front of the window, looking at the dark night sky with her beautiful eyes. The sound of rain beating on the ground came from her ears, and she couldn't help but burst into a sweet smile on her pretty face, and said very happily, Father, our country, it's really dehydrated. I really hope this rain can continue and take away all the drought. Cobra nodded and said with a smile, without Crocodile getting in the way, it won't be long before the country gets back on track. By that time, all the deserts will disappear and will be replaced by endless oases. Such a thriving picture is really exciting. Okay, put the country aside in advance. Cobra looked at his daughter, his face became serious, and he said something serious. Vivi, there is a personal matter, the king needs to explain it to you. Vivi turned her head, she was slender, her beautiful eyes looked at Cobra, and she said curiously, Father, if there is anything you need to say, I will listen. Cobra nodded slightly, did not speak immediately, fell into silence, and seemed to be thinking about how to speak. Princess Vivi is not a fool, she naturally saw her father's situation, did not disturb him, kept quiet, and waited for Cobra to speak. Inside the room, there was a sudden silence, only the sound of clattering outside the window. The rain was pouring, and the sound was very noisy. Not knowing how long it took, Cobra looked at Princess Vivi with a kind smile and asked a question. Vivi, what do you think of Chris? Asked this question, Cobra stared at Vivi, trying to catch the expression on her face, not wanting to miss the slightest bit. Vivi blinked her beautiful eyes, her eyebrows curved into a crescent shape, and Isho smiled and said, Father, I thought you were going to say something. That's a good answer. I told you before. Princess Vivi didn't think much. Sweet Isho, Lord Chris, is the person I admire the most. He is so powerful, his character is stable and mature, he is also very handsome, and he knows a lot. Speaking of which, the most knowledgeable and wise man on board is Chris. Shaking his head lightly, he said with emotion, I don't even know what words to use to praise him, anyway. Chris is just perfect, he's impeccable. After listening to Vivi's words, Cobra nodded, empathizing with him and agreeing. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Chris is so good. Father, as the king of a country, has also participated in the World Conference, and the number of people he has seen is countless and countless. But to be honest, this is the first time my father has met such a perfect young man as Chris, and I have never seen him before. Cobra looked at his daughter and said tentatively, Vivi, I think Chris seems to like you and treat you very well. Have you ever thought about going with him? Stunned. Totally amazed. Ah. Vivi let out an exclamation, with a look of embarrassment on her beautiful and fair face, and hurriedly explained. Father, what are you talking about? What's the matter? Brushing her water blue hair, her pretty face flushed slightly, and she said uncomfortably, I joined the team, and of course Chris will take care of me, I will. Chris is someone who does big things, how could he like me? Father, think about it. Besides, with the current state of our country, I don't have the mood to think about these. Vivi lowered his eyes and said with a sigh, So, Father, don't think about it, let's govern the country well and let the people live a happy life. Yes, I forgot to tell you, I'm not ready to set off for the next voyage. I will stay in the Alabasta Kingdom, assist Robin's sister, and help Chris establish the branch. At the same time, it can also help the father and king handle state affairs, so that our country can develop rapidly. I have told all the sisters about this matter, including Lord Chris, and I have also explained it. After listening to his daughter's words, Cobra couldn't calm down. Without any hesitation, he quickly said, Vivi, don't rush to make a decision. That's it, the king thinks Chris is really very good and suitable for you. So Vivi, next you have to take the initiative and try to get along with Chris, okay? You have to know that a young man as good as Chris must have no shortage of women around him. If you don't grasp it well, it will be too late. Originally, when he talked to Vivi, he made a decision, no matter what, he must stop Vivi from falling in love with Chris. But when he saw Chris' true face and got to know Chris, Cobra changed his decision instantly. No, Chris is so good, I must make him my son-in-law. This idea was deeply rooted in Cobra's heart, and there was no room for negotiation. Facing such a straightforward reminder from Cobra, Princess Vivi was really shy, and she didn't know how to answer the question. Father, I'm a little tired from the day's journey today. Vivi pretended to yawn, pretending to be tired, and said lazily, Father, it's late at night, you should rest early too. Tomorrow Chris will become Shichibukai, I have to get up early to read the newspaper, and go back to practice first. After speaking, without any hesitation, he hurriedly walked towards the door, looking a little like he was running away. Cobra knew Vivi best, how could she not know she was pretending? But this matter can't be rushed, it can't be rushed, or it won't have the opposite effect, then it's not good. So Cobra did not continue to persuade, nodded, smiled amiably and said, Vivi, when you go back, lie down and think about it. Father will not harm you, you remember to consider it carefully, and don't take it lightly. Vivi's sweet Isho, eyebrows curved, Father, I know, I will seriously consider it. I'm going back first, you should rest early too. After he finished speaking, he called gate of opening, hurriedly walked out, and completely disappeared in Cobra's eyes. Guys, since the opening of the book, there has been too little written about the emotional line. 195, Chris, I'm Whitebeard waiting for you in the new world. Around 9 o'clock in the evening. Rain banquet, in a certain room. There are two beautiful women here, it is Bakura and Reiju. It's been raining for a long time. Reiju leaned against the sofa, with Erlang's legs crossed, and his beautiful eyes looked at the night sky outside the window. It was pitch black, the rain was pouring, and there was a crackling sound. Bakura picked up the coffee and took a sip. With a dignified and elegant manner, Isho said with a smile, "Let's get down to business. Call your father today, did he ask you to be Chris's woman?" Silence. Reiju didn't answer immediately. Vivi lowered his head, sighed, and said something with a wry smile. "You are still amazing, nothing can hide from you. Father did this to me. He sold me like this for the benefit of Germa, and made me make sacrifices like this." Speaking of which, Reiju's eyes turned red quietly, and he said sadly, "I am his daughter, how can he do this, how can he treat me like this? He only has Germa in his eyes, and he doesn't care about the feelings of his children at all. How can he be so cold-blooded and ruthless?" More sad she became, tears suddenly appeared, swept across her white and delicate face, and fell on the sofa drop by drop. "This look makes me feel pity, saddened to hear, and tears to hear." Bakura sat beside her and patted her knee, with a concerned look on her pretty face, persuading her. "Why can't you think about it? It's such a big deal. You must know very well what kind of person your father is. Dominating North Blue has become his obsession. He has already been completely obsessed, so how can he care about the people around him? So he will order you to make you Chris's woman, which is normal and not surprising at all." Bakura took Reiju's jade hand, raised his eyebrows, and said generously, "Anyway. You happen to like Chris, isn't this the most suitable result?" Startled. Hearing this, Reiju was stunned for a moment, then stopped crying instantly. A look of anxiety appeared on Chinguo Chingchung's face, and he quickly explained. "Why, sister, don't talk nonsense, I don't like Chris anymore, nothing." Bakura rolled her eyes at her, annoyed. "When I talk to my sister, I'm still secretive, so my sister will be angry. Usually the eyes you look at Chris are full of deep affection. What more do I need to say about this? Besides, everyone else on the boat actually likes Chris and wants to be his woman. It's just that everyone hides their thoughts and does not show deep friendship and tacit understanding." Bakura snorted and said reproachfully, "I think of you as my sister, that's why I told you this. I didn't expect you to hide it, it really broke my sister's heart." Bakura's move is to retreat, and the effect is very significant, which made Reiju a little flustered, and quickly said something. "Sister, I didn't mean to deceive you." Reiju's alluring face, with a shy look, looked very beautiful and fascinated. "It's so embarrassing to say this kind of thing, how can you say it directly? It's embarrassing." Bakura picked up the coffee, took a small sip, and said with a sweet smile, "What's the embarrassment about this? Love has to be said out loud. A man as good and powerful as Chris, any woman will like him when he meets him. Boa Hancock is like this. When we get to Fishman Island, the mermaid princess Shirahoshi will definitely like Chris too. When I go to Wanokuni in the future, Kazuki Hiyori will fall in love with Chris when I meet him. This is the unique charm of Chris. According to Hawkins, he is a peach blossom, and he is destined to have countless women in his life." Bakura folded his crimson hair, smiled elegantly and said, "And we, the two of them, can't escape." Reiju nodded lightly, her mood was much better, and she smiled sweetly. "Sister is right, Chris's charm is truly unmatched. As long as it is a woman who has come into contact with him, every one of them will be infected by him and fall in love with him deeply." With a sigh, there was a look of emotion on the pretty face. Young people who are less than 20 years old go out to sea, and use their strategies to turn the tide. And he has the courage to be a hero, his strength is sky high, and he dares to fight with all kinds of powerful enemies, so that the heroes are tied, and the sword is empty. It is truly admirable that there are such strange men in the world. Bakura willow leaf eyebrows curved into a crescent shape, and Yingying Isho said, Chris is the only person in the world with such a heroic spirit. Okay, since your heart knot has been unraveled, I won't accompany you, let's rest early. You have to get up early tomorrow morning and read the newspaper first to see what the Marines will say about Chris. After speaking, without hesitation, he stood up directly, walked towards the door with elegant steps. The rising sun, the sun shone on the whole sea, brought the dawn of hope, and welcomed a beautiful new day. New world, some sea area, on the Moby Dick. Marco, what's the big news today? Vista showed a confident smile and asked curiously. Fosa shrugged his shoulders and said casually, the sea has been calm recently, and there is no big news. Brahmank smiled and said, why not, the most beautiful woman in the world recently, Boa Hancock, isn't she making a lot of noise? I'm just wondering, she looks like the most beautiful woman in the world, it's ridiculous. Jin Gudo disdains Isho and looks very disapproving. At this time, Marco exclaimed, with a look of surprise on his face, and said in disbelief, how is it possible, Chris has become Shichibukai? Startled. Incredibly shocked. Everyone was shocked by what Marco said, and they were all dumbfounded, unable to react. Marco, bring the newspaper here. Whitebeard was worthy of being the head of the 4 emperors, he was calm and experienced, he was the first to come back to his senses, and gave an order directly. Marco squinted Vivi's eyes, as if he hadn't woken up, and stood up, okay, Dad. Harda frowned, a look of horror on his face. Chris became Shichibukai, this is too incredible. Yeah, how old is he? He is less than 20 years old, it's amazing to become a big man at such a young age. Jozu couldn't help but sigh. Lakyo sighed, shook his head and said, there really are geniuses in this world, now I'm convinced. Thachvivi Isho, very gentlemanly said, the first time a reward of 100 million was offered, which shocked the world. The second time a reward of 300 million was offered, which shocked the Great Channel. Being Shichibukai this time is even more powerful and directly shocked the world. At this time, Whitebeard sat on the throne, spread out the newspaper, and read it carefully. The youngest Shichibukai ever, Chris. Seeing this striking title, Whitebeard couldn't help but read it out, then looked up at the sky and laughed. Chris, kid, I really didn't see the wrong person, you have really become a big man. The other content, Whitebeard was too lazy to read it, he threw the newspaper to Marco and said with a smile. Little Chris, come to the new world early, I really want to have a fight with you. I'm Whitebeard, waiting for you in the new world, boo la la la. Guys, the above is a picture of Marco. 4. Little Ma, the author still likes it very much, so I specially gave him a picture to commemorate this. Huang's Deputy Powerhouse. 196. Chris, concubine will definitely be a gentle and virtuous wife. Big guys, when you reach the 50,000 word mark, please set up an automatic subscription for your little brother. Bota thank you big guys, little brother. New world, an island off the beaten track. At this moment, under the lush big tree, sitting a lot of men, it is the crew of the red-haired pirates. Deputy Captain, here comes the newspaper. Rockstar took a newspaper and strode over, smiling and in a very good mood. Beckman was smoking a cigarette, expressionless, took the newspaper and opened it to read. Reikalu was still so fat, wearing small glasses, took a bite of the food, and said with a smile, what's the big news, Beckman? Yasop leaned against the big tree, holding a piece of grass in his mouth, and said something casually. Recently, the most lively thing in the sea is that woman. Speaking of which, Boa Hancock's picture, I seriously looked at it. But looking around, I can't find any beauty in her. I don't like it, it's not the type one admire at all. It's the #1 beauty in the world, so that's it. Rocksta looked at Yasop and said with a look of surprise, how can it be, how beautiful Boa Hancock is. I've seen her pictures many times, her figure is invincible, her face is alluring, and her hair is fluttering. Seriously, the #1 beauty in the world is truly extraordinary, ha ha ha. At this moment, Beckman's eyes widened, a rare look of surprise appeared on his face, and he lost his calm and rationality. How is it possible that Chris became Shichibukai? Startled. Shocked. Hearing Beckman's words, everyone was shocked, their faces were full of incredible expressions, and they couldn't react at all. Rox was the first to come back to his senses, looked at Beckman, and asked with a look of horror, "Deputy Captain, what did you say? Chris has become Shichibukai." Impossible, how could he be Shichibukai, a newcomer kid? Yasopp hurriedly stood up, came to Beckman's side, looked at the newspaper, and his face suddenly appeared as if he had seen a ghost. It's really becoming Shichibukai, this special girl is too scary. How old is he? About the same as my son, it's really unbelievable that he can go this far. Lajalu shrugged his shoulders and said helplessly, I have worked hard for so many years, but I can't compare to a young brat, that's enough. Shanks laughed, very bold, I knew that this young man was extraordinary, and I really guessed it right, ha ha ha. Beckman quickly glanced through the newspaper and said solemnly, Crocodile was killed by him, the throne of Shichibukai is just robbed like this. This Chris, before going to sea, has already made a comprehensive plan and knows what he wants. As Shichibukai now, if I expect him well, he'll be aggressively recruiting new people, and then marching into the new world. Beckman shook his head, sighed, and said, I thought this was just a potential newcomer. I didn't expect that he would have the power to move the world. It's really shocking. New world, a certain sea area. 9-snake ship, in a certain room. At this time, there is only one person in here, and that is Poke. She stood in front of the window, looking at the white clouds outside, looking at the rippling blue waves, the breeze blowing, gently raising her black and beautiful hair. The peerless charm of the country and the city is fascinating. Chris, my concubine misses you so much. Hancock fell into narcissism again, and there was a man talking to himself, which seemed really funny. The concubine is ready, Chris, when will you come to marry the concubine? Jade hand was raised and placed in front of him, with 2 white thumbs, symbolizing the dialogue between her and Chris. Right thumb represents Chris. Vivi moved, her eyes were very gentle, and she called out affectionately, Hancock. Hancock responded with his left thumb, with a happy smile on his face, Chris, are you going to marry a concubine? Chris was wearing a white suit, knelt down on one knee, took out a diamond ring, and said affectionately, Hancock, I love you, marry me. Hancock was wearing a white wedding dress, beautiful and generous, and nodded lightly, Chris, my concubine loves you too, I love you so much. Then, the two lived a happy and fulfilling life and joined hands for a lifetime, becoming a fairy couple that everyone envied. My concubine really likes you, Chris. Hancock woke up from the illusion, hand covered his cheek, he looked very shy, he looked really cute. Of the world's #1 beauty is evident. Just at this moment, there was a clear knock on the door, interrupting her thoughts and returning to the real world in an instant. Come in. Hancock put down his jade hand, and his pretty face returned to his original appearance, looking arrogant and cold, showing the noble temperament of an empress. With a creaking sound, the wooden door slowly opened, and 2 figures appeared. It was Sandersonia and Marigold. Sister sis, it's a great good thing, there is news from Chris Sama. Marigold waved the newspaper in his hand and said with a big smile, Master Chris has become Shichibukai, he really did. Sandersonia was very excited and hurriedly followed. Master Chris, he is indeed the strongest, and he became Shichibukai so soon. It's amazing, as expected of a man that my sister likes, it's really extraordinary. Stunned. Hancock knew that Chris would become Shichibukai, but he didn't expect it to happen so quickly, it really scared her. Bring it here and show it to Empress. After he came back to his senses, Hancock's beautiful eyes were shining, and his flawless face showed a look of surprise, and he hurriedly urged. He took the newspaper in Marigold's hand. Hancock quickly read it without saying a word. So handsome. Chris's photo is always the most handsome. Shichibukai. Chris, he really became Shichibukai. I'm so happy. My concubine is really happy. Hancock fell into narcissism again, unable to extricate himself. Now we are well matched and can become a loving couple. You are Shichibukai. Your concubine is also Shichibukai. You are so handsome. Your concubine is so beautiful. Chris, the two of us are the best fit. We are destined to come together and grow old together forever. Seeing Hancock's appearance, Marigold and Sandersonia looked at each other, and both of them smiled. For Chris, the brother-in-law, they agree from the bottom of their hearts, and they are extremely satisfied with Chris. Not only the two of them, even the mother-in-law Nu, who is far away on Nine Snake Island, agrees with this marriage very much, and looks forward to Hancock marrying Chris. For no other reason, in their opinion, Chris is really too powerful and mysterious. Sister, don't you give Chris a call? Marigold looked at Hancock and asked curiously. Sandersonia nodded and said with a smile, yes, elder sister, Chris-sama has become Shichibukai, we must send our blessings. Congratulations, Chris-sama, for being promoted to Shichibukai. I believe that Chris-sama will be very happy to receive a call from my elder sister. Hancock came back to his senses, glanced at the two of them, objected, and said something. If you say that, you are wrong. Chris just became Shichibukai, he must be very busy right now, how could his concubine call him? The concubine wants to be a gentle and virtuous good wife. She has to think about her husband at all times, and can't trouble him. So, if you make a phone call, you should wait until the evening. It is absolutely not allowed to call at this time. He waved his hand and issued an order to expel the guests. He said coldly and dignifiedly, you two should go out first, Empress should take a good look at the newspaper. The order goes on, no one is allowed to come to disturb the Empress. Marigold and Sandersonia nodded quickly, and said in unison, yes, my elder sister. After speaking, without the slightest hesitation, he turned around quickly and walked towards the door. Bosses, the pictures of Shanks have never been uploaded. This man's bearing is as broad as the sea, let's give him a picture as a souvenir. 197. Chris, Shirahoshi's Guide. The Mermaid Princess is here. East Blue, see Restaurant Barati. In the back kitchen, there are 4 people, Sanji, Zeph, Patty and Carnegie. Big news that shook the world. The newspaper and said excitedly, the one who came to the restaurant last time. Chris, he has become Shichibukai. Shichibukai, this is all Shichibukai, the most powerful pirate in the ocean, it's really scary. Shocked. 3 of them were deeply shocked by what he said, and they were all dumbfounded, unable to react at all. It was as if he had been immobilized, and he didn't move, he was really stunned. What did you say? Carney looked at Patty and said with a look of horror, that. Chris, he has become Shichibukai, how is this possible? How old is he? He's less than 20 years old and 20 years old. It's scary to be able to become such a big man. Sanji frowned, took a deep breath, snatched the newspaper from Patty's hand, and quickly read it. It's really him, how is this possible? He's just a newcomer, how can he be Shichibukai? There must be something wrong. Zeph shook his head and said with emotion, no, I think this is normal, completely in line with common sense. When I saw him for the first time, I had an intuition, this young man is definitely not something in the pool. Sure enough, it didn't take long before he became Shichibukai, standing at the top of the whole sea, overlooking all the heroes. Variable, Chris, a young man, will definitely bring a different influence to this era. Patty patted Sanji on the shoulder, laughed and said something. Hey, your sister is on Chris' boat, and looking at their relationship, it seems very unusual. If your sister becomes Chris' woman, then you have a Shichibukai brother-in-law. Zizzo, if you say this, you can definitely show it off for a lifetime. Anyone who hears it will envy you. Carney nodded and said with a teasing, at that time, I can say to the outside world, my good brother, his brother-in-law is Shichibukai. What's the matter? I'm so excited just thinking about it, ha ha ha. Sanji was angry, spit out the smoke from his mouth, and cursed fiercely, what are you two talking about in your sleep? Don't you deserve a beating? He became Shichibukai. What does it have to do with me? If you drag me up again, don't blame me for fixing you. Old man, I went out to greet the guests, I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. Throwing the newspaper to Paddy, he walked to the door and said something in his heart. Chris, even if my sister is willing to follow you, I won't approve of you. If you want to be my brother-in-law, there is no door, let's talk about it in the next life. Logatown, Marine Base, inside an office. Here, there are two people, a man and a woman, it is Smoker and Tashigi. Lord Colonel, something has happened. Tashigi took the newspaper and hurriedly walked in front of Smoker, with a look of surprise on her pretty face, and said quickly. Smoker leaned back in his chair, still wrapped around him when he saw Tashigi. He frowned and scolded him without saying a word. You idiot, you can't be more stable. You're already a sergeant, how can you be like a recruit, frizzy, and annoying when you see me? Tashigi, I'll warn you one last time. Next time, if you're in such a hurry, I'll tell you to get out of here immediately, did you hear me? Tashigi is a natural fool, and quickly apologized and said, Lord Colonel, don't worry, I will definitely pay attention in the future. By the way, Colonel, there is news from Chris. He really defeated Crocodile and became Shichibukai. Startled. Shocked. Smoker couldn't sit still, stood up quickly, his face was full of horror, and he couldn't say anything, as if he had seen a ghost. What did you say? Chris became Shichibukai. Smoker took a breath, frowned, and said in disbelief, Onagumo didn't take him down, just made him Shichibukai. Waste, Onagumo, your mother-in-law is a piece of waste, and the elite vice admiral of the headquarters is a complete rubbish. Bring the newspaper, I want to see what this Chris has done. Tashigi handed over, seeing this familiar photo, Smoker's eyes were about to burst into flames, and his body was aching, reminding him from time to time. Youngest Shichibukai, damn Chris, I will definitely take care of you. The anger in my heart erupted. I didn't read the content at all, I tore the newspaper to pieces, and said aloud. Wait for Lao Su, even if you become Shichibukai, Lao Su will kill you. Kraigana Island. The sky was dark, and the air was filled with the smell of gunpowder, which was very pungent. After smelling it, it felt particularly uncomfortable. On the ground, weapons can be seen everywhere, as well as a lot of dried blood, all of which indicate that there has been a tragic battle here. In a castle, the only man who lives here is Dracul Mahawk, who is called the world's largest swordsman. Chris, what a funny kid. Mahawk leaned on the chair, crossed Erlang's legs, silently looked at the photo on the newspaper, and looked at Chris. Such sharp eyes, as well as his cold appearance, these all reveal the fact that this Chris must be a powerful swordsman. You can't be wrong, I haven't seen the eyes of a good swordsman for a long time, and I will never see it wrong. For the first time in the newspaper, there is a reward of 100 million Bailey. The second time, a reward of 300 million Bailey was offered. And this time, directly become Shichibukai, on my equal footing. This guy's ambition will definitely not stop at Shichibukai, he really has to see it. Mahawk picked up the wine glass, finished the wine, stood up, put the supreme knife behind him, and strode towards the door. Fishman Island, inside Dragon Palace Castle. There are soldiers, handles outside, there are a total of 4 people here, namely Neptune, Shark, King and Roller. Father, this Chris is in the newspaper again, it's really incredible. Rollover Star put down the newspaper, his face full of surprise, and murmured, when he first appeared in the newspaper, he attracted our attention. After that, we've been watching his movements to see where he can go. I didn't expect that the third time he appeared in the newspaper, he would become Shichibukai. It's really scary. Huangxing nodded and said with emotion, so young, he has achieved such great achievements, I really don't know what step he can achieve in the future. Next, I will keep an eye on him and record everything he does, la la la. Xiaoxing looked calm, and said very rationally, after this period of confirmation, if there is no accident, he is the person we are waiting for. As long as the Sea King Poseidon is born, there will be a leader at the same time. The two are inseparable and complementary. We have been keeping an eye on the changes in the sea, and from the current situation, the possibility that Chris is the leader, I think is very big. Neptune laughed and said happily, if it's really Chris, then that's great, it's perfect. A boy who is less than 20 years old and 20 years old has already become a big man. If he is given enough time, then he can reach a higher level. If this is the case, letting him guide Shirahoshi will definitely make a huge difference and even change the world. I'm looking forward to this day, Neptune, ho 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 ho. Guys, above is a picture of Shirahoshi. Regarding this, I didn't appear so soon, but let's release pictures in advance. Shirahoshi is so timid, and still needs Chris to help her and guide her to make changes, isn't she looking forward to it? 198. Let's welcome the advent of a new era together, fu 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 tilde tilde. Dressrosa, the Highland of Kings. The new world has become more and more lively recently. Gladius was expressionless, and said coldly, the arrival of Boa Hancock has turned the world upside down, and it is impossible for people to live in peace. Diamandi leaned on the chair, crossed Erlang's legs, smiled very ugly, and said something. Like the young master, she is a big person of the Shichibukai level. So Marine definitely can't interfere with her, and can only let her make trouble in the new world. However, this woman is really beautiful, the most beautiful woman in the world, she really deserves her reputation. Pika made a shrill voice and retorted, how can such a woman be considered the most beautiful woman in the world? It doesn't look good anywhere. It's not my type at all. Violet is much better looking than her. Jorah covered her face, laughed and said, yes, Miss Ben is much prettier than her, hoo 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 hoo. At this moment, there was a sound of footsteps, and I saw Violet holding a newspaper and walking over slowly with elegant and dignified steps. As soon as I came here, I heard Pika-sama's praise, which really made me feel very happy. Young master, the newspaper is here. Doflamingo took the newspaper, leaned back, and opened it without hesitation. What? Chris has really become Shichibukai. Doflamingo sat up straight, with a horrified look on his face, his eyes wide and he looked like he was going to hell. Quiet. Be quiet. The surrounding air seemed to be silent, all faces were full of surprises, dumbfounded, unable to react at all. Dover, what did you say? Chris has become Shichibukai. Diamante was shocked and said in disbelief, he really became Shichibukai, how is this possible? Pika frowned and said in disbelief, originally, I thought Dover overestimated him. Now it seems that Chris, this young man, really has this strength. Torapal leaned over to Doflamingo and hurriedly said, I said, Doflamingo, which Shichibukai was defeated. It's such a rubbish, killed by this kid Chris, what a damn fellow, he. Lao shook his head and sighed, it's unbelievable to have achieved such a great achievement at such a young age. Senor Peak wore a baby hat and said seriously, it turns out that the young master's assessment of him is completely correct. This Chris, although he is young, has no doubts about his strength, and he must not be underestimated. Buffalo was wrapped in chains, and his voice sounded very weird, he has the same conqueror haki as the young master. It can be seen that his ambition must be very huge, and it is definitely not just as simple as being Shichibukai, reflecting. Cigarette, with a look of longing on his pretty face, he muttered to himself, It's amazing, I don't know if he needs me or not. If Chris needs me, it's perfect. Sugar likes to eat grapes the most, and said with a smile, Chris has become Shichibukai, so we can cooperate with him. Two Shichibukai working together, this kind of love has never happened before, hee. Listening to their words, Violet's alluring face quietly revealed a sweet smile, and sighed in his heart. Master Chris, you really did it. I knew that you would definitely become Shichibukai, as expected. Awesome, Chris, you are the best young man in the world, and I am so proud of you. In 2 years, you will surely come to rescue Dressrosa, and I look forward to your arrival, Chris. At this time, Doflamingo threw away the newspaper, covered his face, and laughed arrogantly, like a mental patient. The wave of the new era has finally arrived. Those high-level creators, you will know in the future, what a stupid decision to make Chris Shichibukai. Come on, let's boil, make the sea more turbulent, and welcome the arrival of a new era together, foo. Dressrosa, Flower Field. Under the ground, in a certain room, there are two people here, it is Rebecca and King Riku. Grandpa, here's the newspaper. Rebecca handed the newspaper to King Riku and sat down slowly, with a graceful and luxurious posture, showing the elegance of a royal family. King Riku sat up straight, with a gentle smile on his vicissitudes face. Since working with Chris, this old man's mood is really getting better and better. No need to worry about anything now, just wait quietly for the time to come, when heroes will appear, and the country will usher in happiness and prosperity. At this time, King Riku saw the contents of the newspaper, and with a look of horror, he stood up and said something in disbelief. What? Chris became Shichibukai. Hearing King Riku's words, Rebecca couldn't sit still, she quickly stood up, her beautiful eyes were shining, and her perfectly fair face was full of surprise. Grandpa, you said above, Chris-sama has become Shichibukai. Impossible, it's been a while since we separated last time, and he's become Shichibukai. Who can believe this? It's really incredible. King Riku sighed and looked up at the ceiling, with an expression of infinite emotion. I did it, he really did it. When he said he was going to become Shichibukai, I thought it would take a long time. I didn't expect that in less than half a month, he would be upright, and he would really become Shichibukai. Awesome, this young man, Chris, is really outstanding, he is perfect. Rebecca nodded heavily, and with a sigh, Isho smiled and said, Grandpa, you are right, you are so right. Master Chris, he is definitely the best young man in the world, no one else. The person I admire the most right now is Lord Chris. He's so powerful, so mysterious, so handsome. It's great, Lord Chris, it's really like a god, so dazzling, so dazzling. King Riku sat down with a serious look on the old face, and said loudly, Chris has become Shichibukai, a big man in the sea. There must be countless women who like him, and all of them will pursue him. So, Rebecca, in the days to come, you must persuade your aunt to take the initiative and quickly establish a relationship with Chris. If you don't take good care of a young man like Chris, you will definitely regret it for the rest of your life. Rebecca's eyebrows were curved, and a sweet smile bloomed on her face. She agreed and said something. Grandpa, don't worry, I will definitely persuade my aunt, and I will make Lord Chris my brother-in-law. There is a brother-in-law of Shichibukai, what a face when you say it, he. The four seas, the Great Waterway, and other places, everyone saw the newspaper, and they all talked about it. Pushing Chris to the cusp of the storm, making him the focus of the entire sea, at the very center of the whirlpool. Chris, this kid, can actually become a Shichibukai. No, I have to go to sea, I have to become a big man, ha. Chris, what the hell are you? It's amazing that you've been in the newspaper 3 times, and every time you have such a big move. Damn Marine, the era of your domination of the sea has finally come to an end, quack. It's amazing, it's been so many years, there hasn't been such a powerful young man for a long time, it's really amazing. The youngest Shichibukai, what a lofty honor this is. I really envy the dead old man, la la la. A mere rookie can become Shichibukai, are all these Marines eating shit, what rubbish. I've seen this Chris, but I didn't expect him to be Shichibukai. In the future, I can go out and show off, hoo hoo hoo. Guys, the above is a picture of Sugar. I have mentioned this little girl before, but I haven't released a picture, so I will upload it now. 199. Shocked. Chris has a bounty of 735 million. Rain banquet, in the hall. Early in the morning, a large group of people gathered here, and everyone's face showed anticipation, as if they were anxiously waiting for something. Damn, why are today's newspapers being delivered so slowly, crap. Burgess walked back and forth, the most impulsive, the most annoying to wait, and he couldn't help cursing. The poisonous light showed a vicious look, and coughed and said, I will kill this news bird that delivers the newspaper. Jin brandished the two strangely shaped weapons and said indifferently, what's the hurry, just practice if you need to, and becoming stronger is the kingly way. You can have a banquet at noon, but I have been looking forward to it for a long time, ha ha ha. Bartolomeo put his hands in his trouser pockets and laughed. At this time, the sky outside, the rain had already stopped, the clouds were dense and dark, and it looked like it was going to rain again. Come on, I bought the newspaper, ha ha ha. The captain has become Shichibukai, and everyone is talking about it outside, quack. Shichibukai is ours, long live the Chris Pirates. A few little guys, each with a large stack of newspapers in their hands, ran in excitedly, smiling and yelling. This time, in the hall, the pot exploded immediately. Nami blinked her big eyes, smiled sweetly and innocently, and said quickly, leave me a newspaper, don't take it all. Alvida was very anxious, and quickly followed, hurry up and post them one by one, so that everyone can see. Robin stroked his black and beautiful hair, and said something as intellectual and generous as always. Today is a very important day. Everyone will witness the birth of a generation of kings. It's really exciting. Vivi looked at the stack of newspapers, her beautiful eyes were shining, and Isho said with a smile, I don't know how Marine will report on Chris, I'm looking forward to it. At this moment, Burgess raised his head and laughed loudly, echoing in the hall. I saw it, the captain has really become Shichibukai, way ha ha ha. Luo carrying the demon knife and crying, a rare smile appeared on his cold face, the youngest Shichibukai, Chris. Very good, Marine report, very well written. Bartolomeo spread out the newspaper and laughed, have you seen that, the captain's bounty has skyrocketed. 735 million. This is more than 700 million Bailey, ha ha ha. Cavendish frowned, with a puzzled look on his face, he couldn't believe it and said, I originally thought that it would be a lot to reach 500 million Baileys. I didn't expect it to jump directly to more than 700 million. This is really scary. Rare faint smile on Jin's indifferent face, he said, this bounty must be the highest among Shichibukai. I believe that even the world's greatest swordsman, Hawkeye, doesn't have such a high bounty. Kuro pushed his glasses, his eyes flashed with wisdom, and calmly said, defeat Crocodile, and let the captain offer a reward of up to 500 million Baileys. But there is Onagumo Vice Admiral in the middle. He is the Vice Admiral, and even he can't take the captain. So the bounty is from 300 million, 1 to 735 million, which is completely reasonable. However, having said that, seeing the captain's bounty still deeply shocked me. Lafitte looked at the newspaper. VV1, the gentleman as always, said, it has been achieved, the goal set by Ben has finally come to an end. Next, it's time to go to the new world, attack a country as a base, and stand in the sea where the strong are like clouds. Cobra read the newspaper carefully and smiled. Marine's evaluation of Mr. Chris is really very high. The youngest Shichibukai, the leader of the new era, the future achievements are limitless. Various modifications, all kinds of compliments, pushed Chris to the wave of fishing reels and attracted the attention of the world. Belle nodded and agreed. As soon as this newspaper comes out, Lord Chris, it will definitely become the focus of the whole sea. In the days to come, the topic of discussion will definitely revolve around Lord Chris. There is no doubt about that. Gaka smiled and said, although marine has the meaning of killing, but strictly speaking, this newspaper is indeed reporting the truth. It can be seen that marine's emphasis on Mr. Chris has been raised to the first level of combat readiness. Girls held the newspapers one by one, with expectant expressions on their pretty faces, and read them carefully, refusing to let go of the slightest detail. For them, the reports related to Chris are all precious, and they will all keep them as souvenirs. The leader of the new era, this sentence is too correct and very incisive. Karina's beautiful eyes flowed, revealing a sly color, and said with a smile, among these comments, what this girl likes the most is this sentence. Corona floated in the air, giving out a silver bell-like laughter. Head to head, this princess also likes this sentence. Haley ha 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 ha. Nami blinked her big eyes and smiled sweetly and innocently. The other things are not important. I think the most surprising thing is the reward of more than 700 million. Zizzo, more than 700 million. This is a huge sum of money. It's scary to think about it. Nojiko rolled her eyes at her, and said angrily, you only have money in your eyes, can you stop seeing money and have a bit of a chance? Betty carried the flag, took a puff of cigarette, and was still so calm. From the time I got on the boat, Chris said he wanted to be Shichibukai. It's amazing that Chris has achieved this goal in less than 3 months. Robin put down the newspaper lightly, and said shallowly, Chris was able to get to this point, it's definitely impossible by luck alone. Here, how much effort he has put in, how much suffering he has suffered, is simply beyond our imagination. Vivi nodded, her eyebrows curved into a crescent shape, and she said with a smile, I remember there is a sentence in Chris's quotation that is very suitable for use here. The big waves washed the sand, and after many difficulties, we finally returned to the shore. What Chris said is very profound and fits the situation very well. Reiju blinked his beautiful eyes, and a sweet smile bloomed on his face, and said something. From today, we will truly become big names, and every move will attract everyone's attention. This sea has finally left a legend that belongs to us. It's exciting to think about it. At this time, Chris put his hands in his trouser pockets, calmly as always, and said lightly, little ones, we will have a banquet later. Let's celebrate today, leave tomorrow morning, and continue the journey. After speaking, without the slightest hesitation, he walked directly inside, preparing to continue his cultivation. Hearing what Chris said, the people below were all excited, dancing and yelling, and the voice spread throughout the casino. Have a banquet, have a banquet, have a banquet, say the important thing 3 times. Bang bang bang, everyone listen carefully, I will bring the wine for Lao Su. Today I want to drink happily, ha ha ha. Warmly congratulations to Captain Chris becoming Shichibukai, quick, applaud Lao Su, quack. Teasy, if you push me again, I will kill you immediately, from Malagofi. The captain has become Shichibukai, where are the flowers, where are the applause, don't be silent, hurry up and applaud Lao Su, hurry up. It's all bullshit, cheers to Shichibukai. Hooray, long live Captain Chris, long live Shichibukai, long live everyone, la la la. Gui Sunzi, is there anyone who dares to fight wine? I want to drink 3 kilograms today, whoever dares to single out, sign up and come. Brothers, this guy is too stubborn, he will be killed in the future. Guys, here is the picture above. For this, the author will not introduce it. Also, I had a banquet last time, and now I am Shichibukai, so I must have a banquet to celebrate, this is a normal thing. 200. Chris, do you still remember me? Foo 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 tilde tilde. Entering the 200 chapter mark, sprinkle flowers to celebrate. Rain banquet, in a spacious room. At this time, there are a lot of people here, only one is a man, and the others are beautiful women. It's Chris, and those beautiful female crew members. Everyone is so happy, yelling, making noise, and can't stop at all. Sweetheart Queen leaned back on the chair and crossed Erlang's legs. Isho smiled and said, "Today is undoubtedly the happiest day since I went to sea." Betty waved the banner, cultivated the devil fruit ability, took a breath, and said something. "It's normal, this is Shichibukai, a world-famous existence. The reason why the people below follow Chris to the sea is to get ahead and have a bright future. Now that Chris has become Shichibukai, he has become a real big man, and they are all over the place, one by one." Alvita stood the big black iron rod in front of him, took a break, smiled charmingly and sweetly. "It makes sense, it is indeed the case. What is a pirate is for treasure, to be famous, to live a better life than others, this is the real pirate." In Chris's quotations, there is one sentence that he said very well, which left a deep impression on me. People who like to pursue freedom and are eager to take risks on the sea, what kind of garbage pirates are, at best? Explorers. On his forehead, and said with a smile, although what Chris said is a bit ugly. But the words are not rough, think carefully, and say it correctly, so that people can't find the fault. Some people go out to sea to become pirates, and they are called pirates. They say that they want to see the customs of various places and yearn for an unfettered life on the sea. This type of person, even if they have a pirate flag, is a pirate team, but they are not really pirates, they are just adventurers. Robin brushed his black and beautiful hair, picked up the coffee, took a sip, and said something intelligently and generously as always. Chris is a very pure person. Before he went to sea, he had clearly defined his goal, that is, to be a real pirate. Defeat Crocodile and take his Shichibukai throne for fame and status. Then go to the New World and attack a non-government allied country as a base to vigorously develop the economy. This is for wealth. Fame, status, wealth, and Chris's series of practices really implement the word pirate to the end. Reiju looked at Baccarat, her eyebrows curved, still so dignified and elegant. Midi went to make fine wine, Carmen went to cook food, and everyone else went to fight. This kind of atmosphere is harmonious and happy, and I feel that the whole person is relaxed and the spirit is particularly good. Sarah, Nikita, Marianne 3, not here. Why didn't Baccarat like them? So he explained to Robin, and sent the three of them casually, and let them deal with the affairs of the branch. He folded his crimson hair, and said with a graceful smile, "Didn't Chris just say that I have a day off today, and I will leave tomorrow? Then there is no doubt that today's banquet will be eaten from noon to evening." At this moment, there was a crisp sound in the room. Blue blue. The girls stopped chatting and searched one by one, only to see one of the phone bugs chirping on the desktop beside Chris. Chris stopped practicing, and without any hesitation, walked over and answered the phone. Foo 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 foo. Phone bug simulates the appearance of Doflamingo, with unique small glasses, a signature smile, a pink feather coat, and a unique laugh. All this is so vivid, seeing this phone bug is like seeing Doflamingo himself. "Chris, I'm Doflamingo, do you still remember my partner, foo 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 foo?" Hearing such an arrogant voice from the phone bug, and seeing the appearance of the phone bug, all the girls knew that the person opposite was Shichibukai Doflamingo. The sweetheart queen stroked her pale golden hair, frowned her beautiful eyebrows, and said something with a look of doubt on her pretty face. "Last time at West Blue, this guy got into a fight with Chris and looked like he didn't die. Since that time, I haven't seen him call. This is the first call between the two of them. Calling at this time, do you want to ask for help?" Betty stopped practicing, exhaled the smoke from her mouth, and said calmly as always, "It's normal to call. After all, this guy and Chris are allies. Shichibukai Alliance, what a powerful organization it sounds." Desire stroked her red and yellow hair. "Ying Isho, when I was at West Blue, I didn't get on the boat yet. I heard you said that the battle between Doflamingo and Chris was very exciting. It can be said that all the cards are out. At that time, Doflamingo used the ability of awakening to assimilate the surrounding things and turned into a sea of white lines. But even if he does his best, he has no choice but to leave with hatred. Alvida shrugged, with a look of regret on her pretty face, and sighed, "It's a pity that I was not on the boat at that time and missed the fight." Awakening, what a powerful ability this is. I really want to take a good look at it. Robin frowned and said with a wry smile. Zone and Paramesha both have the ability to awaken, so this is no problem. But whether there is a higher level of awakening in Logia is unknown. After all, I asked Chris last time, and he didn't answer. I've eaten devil fruit for so long, I never knew devil fruit still had the ability to awaken. It's too difficult. If you don't have enough talent to awaken the fruit, you really can't do it. Reiju brushed her pink hair and said with a smile, "If nothing else, Chris will receive a lot of calls today. One of them, there must be the #1 beauty in the world, Boa Hancock." Pop. At this time, Chris lit a cigarette, still so calm. "Stop being polite, Doflamingo. What's the matter? Say it directly, don't beat around the bush." Hearing what Chris said, the officials of the Don Quixote family were suddenly unhappy. All of them were filled with righteous indignation, with angry expressions on their faces. Loyal to Doflamingo, seeing that Chris disrespected Dover, his eyes immediately turned cold, and he said something vicious. "Chris, who do you think you're talking to? Give Lao Su some respect." S voice was still so harsh, it was very hard to hear. "Don't think that being Shichibukai will make you arrogant, Chris." Torapal sucked his nose, leaned over to Doflamingo, and laughed. "Dover is the chosen person, destined to be the king of the sea." "Chris, kid, you said these words, aren't you afraid that Dover will kill you? He. Gladius looked at Doflamingo and said angrily, "Young master, this Chris is too presumptuous to ignore you at all. Shichibukai, who is just a newcomer, dares to be arrogant in front of the young master. It's really a bit of shit." Seeing the members of the family, the more he talked, the more exaggerated, Doflamingo got angry and directly reprimanded. "Enough. Didn't you see that I was calling Chris? What are you all trying to do? Just losing my face." Doflamingo's forehead burst with blue veins, and Vivi's 5 fingers jumped. Instead of anger, he smiled and said, "Chris is my most important ally, and his role is enormous. Even if he said something ugly, it's not your turn to make irresponsible remarks. Forget it this time. If it's like this next time, I will never forgive it. Foo. I cursed these cadres secretly in my heart. What a bunch of idiots. They all talk nonsense if they don't have the eyesight to see. If you piss off Chris, I'll take care of you one by one, damn it. Guys, this is Doflamingo on the phone. In the anime, you should have seen it, so the author will not introduce it. This picture is really interesting and very classic.